Hello, guys. Welcome to a second. Well, technically, it's like the fifth, sixth edition of this to Hitless Podcast. We have on our end as someone really cool invited, someone that is known for spending a lot of hours in Dark Souls 3. Someone that I would say one of the best Dark Souls 3 runners that I've known, and I'm talking about Mr. Benderzgreat. We're going to be reviewing what is the all bosses master run of Dark Souls 3. He's going to give a more inside review of this run, and we're going to also be discussing the hitless career of this amazing runner. So let's go into it, right? I hope they can hear you now. Welcome, Bender.
Okay. Hey, welcome in. Thank you for having me.
Sure. It's my pleasure having you here, dude. So, first of all, really hard run. Congratulations for it, because I know you spent a really big time on it for sure.
Yeah. This run, I was working on it for a couple of months, and then I took a break from it because I didn't want to hit burnout with this run. It's such a long grind to get this kind of a run. So I was working on something else for a few weeks, and then I got that, came back, and got this run within like 3 days as an offline D-Rust. It was so unexpected.
It's crazy, like how fast after a big D-Rust you can get a run, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was so weird. Like I stopped working on Master Run, and I was working on a different run, which was SL1 Mimic Head All Bosses.
Oh, that's a cool one.
It is a cool run, and it's weird. It's definitely like not objectively as difficult as the Master Run, but in a way it kind of is, because it's so intense. There's so many things that you have to manage all the time. Like your health is draining constantly, and you're SL1, so there's very little that you can really do about that. So you constantly have to manage stuff during the running sections, during boss fights, like everywhere.
Yeah, literally you have to be thinking when to heal, because it's not so like one thing is having a window to attack, but another way is having a window to heal. That's really different. And since you have 0 HP on SL1 is way more difficult. Really, I would like to discuss that run also another time, because it's amazing how much improvement you have to do in such boss fight. Like you have to give it another mindset in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, just the mindset, I feel like in the Mimic Head run, you have to be so focused all the time. It was funny because like the next day I came back and started de-rusting the Master Run. And I remember at one point I remember saying, this is so much more chill than the Mimic Head run, because there's so much less I have to really worry about all the time. It's still like, the difficulty in the boss fights and stuff is way up there, but the running sections were way more relaxed. It was so funny. But yeah, I think like in a way, working on the Mimic Head run and all the like hyper focus that you have to do, it really helped just make this run super consistent as soon as we came back to it, just because I was focused the whole time.
Yeah, that's for sure. So tell me something, Bender, before what would you say, like in my opinion, seeing the master run, that will be till days the magnus opus of someone in Dark Souls 3, because it's in the name, master run. But
yeah,
would you say it's just your hardest run, or what would you say is your hardest run you have done till day?
Yeah, I would say like objectively the Master Run is the most difficult run. Like you're looking at Udex Gundyr here, and even at SL1 on regular new game, this fight is over in like 30 seconds. Like there's not much you have to worry about. And on this run, you have to fight him for like 5 minutes solid, and you can be very aggressive against him. But it's just it forces you to learn every little detail that you never bothered learning in all the runs until now. That's like what it forces you to do. It gets super consistent at every single boss fight, all the early game bosses especially. But like, yeah, I think objectively this is probably the most difficult run, at least that I've done, and I don't think I'll come up with a run that's more difficult than that.
For now, that's for now.
For now. Well, recently, Luca did SL1 no upgrades, no ox. So, like no poison and no bleed, no frost, all of those status effects. And I mean, it's apples and oranges. It's hard to compare, but in some ways that run is more difficult than a run like this because you have to actually fight a boss like Half-Light. And on this
Yeah.
run, you just cheese him and stuff like that.
I mean,
So,
imagine fighting Half-Life, am I right? Imagine.
oh, I know.
It's
There's
kind
like,
of a prof that.
yeah, there's very few people who really know how to fight Half-Light well. And it's really impressive for somebody to do that on a no-hit run. Like, and he routed that run to put Half-Light as early as possible to minimize the nonsense and whatever. So, but yeah, I think like objectively, this is the most difficult run that I've done. But like I was saying, the Mimic Head run, in a way, has
It
like
could
a
be more
very
difficult,
high
yeah.
level of difficulty just because of the level of focus and awareness you need on a run like that. So it's sort of apples and oranges, but yeah, I would say that this is just objectively the most difficult one that I've done.
It's really impressive because I could say like just fight like imagine board. I don't even know who to fight board on second phase, you know?
Yeah, no one does. Like in 99% of runs, no matter what your build is, nobody really needs to learn how to fight Vord phase
Yeah,
2,
you just
but
smack them on the face and parry his face. And that's
and
it.
Vort in particular is kind of nasty. He has some very unforgiving hitboxes. So you've got to be very aware of things. And like, there's this goofy meme where in normally when you do phase transition on him, he will hop backwards and then go into the triple charge.
Yeah, that happened to me.
Right?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That happened to me
So,
since.
Yeah, there's this problem where if his back is right up against a wall, he will not hop backwards because he has no space for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Instantly go into he just
like Osiris, like Osiris. Yeah. Dude, that happened to me.
Osiris, yeah.
It's crazy because those are the hits that you get because you lack information.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all those, like I was saying, every little boss, you have to know every little detail. You have to know all of the memes. You have to be super aware of, your positioning and your movement and exactly what effect that's going to have. And when you're in boss fights for a very, very long time, you really just need to know every little detail about them. So it just takes a ton of practice on the bosses to get really comfortable with them. And then that's the other problem is, it's impossible to prepare for everything. So you're just naturally going to lose runs to something you've never encountered before.
Or like to really weird RNG. Like for example, when I was running Immortal Severance on Sekiro, I got distance PV to Saints or Ishin. And I was confused because wait, I did practice this fight. What happened here? And then I talked to Crocs and he told me, oh, you got a weird RNG that only happens 1 in 1,000 tries. And he told me it took me 5 hours to replicate that. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm just unlucky as fuck.
Yeah, and it's just exactly you can't prepare for everything, and that's part of what makes no hit runs so difficult is to some extent, you just have to accept that you've done as much preparation as you can. You just got to go for it, and whatever happens, happens. Right?
Yeah, that's really rough.
And then and I had something similar happen on Yorm. It turns out that like there are when you're using the Storm Ruler, it's very, very good, obviously, but it's amazing how many memes there are with the Storm Ruler. And
oh god, I cannot even think about them.
there's like all this goofy stuff. There was there's like 1 or 2 frames. When you're charging the Storm Ruler, you hold L2, you charge up the Storm Ruler.
Yes.
And then you can do and then you can do the special attack and hit him. But for like 1 or 2 frames after the Storm Ruler has charged, you are not able to roll. And I found out the hard way that his weapon landed on me right at that moment. And like there was, I was discussing it with a couple of people, and we were thinking that there were like 2 or 3 other possibilities that could have happened. And then I ended up testing it and found out, no, it is actually a real thing. Like, and I've got it with my input viewer and everything showing it is just straight up. Your input gets eaten.
Oh my god!
Your roll gets ignored.
So I can imagine you with the tinfoil hat, just looking at everything. I'm not crazy. It did happen.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Like you get those moments that it makes you question what the heck just happened.
Yeah, if either I'm just bad at this game or the actual game stole this hit for me.
And I'm really happy that I run this game on PC because you've got all these practice tools and stuff that you can practice and experiment and test with, and it makes it so much easier to go through and understand what actually happened with something.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's so true. That's
yeah,
so true. I believe that at least if I get a hit to a boss and I don't understand what happened, I get super mad. Like
yeah,
first
right, right.
because like okay, what's the learning of this? Because the idea with hitless is that you get hit. Okay, you made a mistake. Why do you make a mistake? You have to fix it, but then you don't know where your mistake was. And
Yeah,
that
and
is
it's
painful.
yeah, and that's one area where, the community comes in really well. If there's something you don't understand, like the Team Hitless Discord, you ask a question there. A lot of people have a lot of good knowledge and info they're willing to share. So that's one way. Like if you don't have all the tools available to you, it's great to go around and just ask people for their input and say, "Hey, what happened here? I don't understand it." So that's one thing that I've found for the past like 2.5 to 3 years is like there's a lot of people out there that have a ton of knowledge and are willing to share it. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
here we
that for
are on
sure.
Vort. This is the triple charge. You saw him hop backwards there. I think I remember at that point,
But
like I was kind of concerned that he was near the corner and he might not do the hop back, but I got lucky and he was good. And look at this, like this damage is pathetic here in
oh
phase two. I have to
god.
stay here for so long. Like nobody knows how to fight Vord properly, but he's actually really fun. Like when you learn to fight him properly, he's actually very fun. And it's fun to like strafe attacks like that instead of just rolling through everything. So he's actually kind of cool. It's just his arena is a little bit small for him.
It's way
That's
better
really
than
the
seeing
biggest
the
thing.
arena, that's for sure. As
Yeah.
I will take small arenas to weird positioning and like uh the elevation memes.
Mm-hmm.
I will take that all day.
Yeah. Like you were talking about Osiris, he
Yeah.
has his insta charge. His arena is just terrible in
Oh yeah,
every
I can
way. There's
imagine.
so many problems with that arena. Like Osiris in the randomizer, I'll fight him all day. It's all good. But fighting him in his own arena, oh, it's miserable. I hate it. It's just so bad.
Yeah, I can
But yeah.
imagine. Like there's some arenas that you think, okay, what was Miyazaki thinking on all of this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um I'm
It's
trying to
like,
think of what happened on this run that was actually like noteworthy, worth showing. I had a moment in a running
oh
section in a
god.
little bit that might be kind of funny. Um, but yeah, just getting through like one thing that people may not realize with the new game scaling, when you're on this high new game scaling, like new game +7 or whatever,
Yeah,
like
yes.
the way that the game does the scaling, every time you go to a new game cycle, it increases the difficulty, but it significantly increases the difficulty of the early game bosses because they're expecting you to show up here with a +10 weapon and all the levels in the world and all this stuff. So fights like Gale or even the Demon Princes, they're not scaled up
Oh
nearly as much as these early game bosses are.
yes, yes,
um
yes, makes sense.
yeah, so all of these early fights are what really take a long time, like Gundyr, Vort, Abyss Watchers.
Yeah, those fights are not
Yeah,
supposed to take that long, even on New Game Plus, because you're supposed to go with really high level and equipment.
good,
Yeah,
yeah,
good
good
equipment.
weapons, good
Exactly.
upgrades, everything, good rings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
All of that. Now, I have
yeah,
a question. A more personal question. For example, how long have you been doing hitless for till this day? For how long
yeah.
already?
So I think I got my first no hit run just about 3 years ago, almost to the day, pretty close. And I started with Dark Souls Remastered. That was the first game that I ever did no hit.
Oh,
And
you start with Dark Souls and not Dark Souls 3?
yeah, Dark Souls 1 was the game that I knew the best at that time. So that was my first no hit run. And
Oh.
literally all I did was I pulled up like Hobbs' route, like his run from
Oh.
2018 when he first got it with Dark Souls Remastered, and I just copied that. I had no clue what I was doing at all. And
God damn. We have a true
and
veteran around here. Literally
and
no guide, no idea, just trying to mimic
I,
everything. And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not saying that Hob is bad because I mean Hob is the grandfather of Hitless, but he
Yeah,
has
of course.
such questionable strats.
Sometimes and like that's one thing that when you're just straight up copying someone and you don't know what you're doing, it's like
Yeah.
it's good to follow a guide, somebody who's actually explaining what they're doing, why they're doing it, and it's good to make sure that you're putting time into learning the game, not just copying and repeating what someone else is doing. And that's not what I did at all. I just copied what other people did, and then when it went wrong, I was like, oh, I guess I did something wrong, and I just try again. And that's not a good way to do it.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, not at all.
As someone who actually did that for a long time, I don't recommend it at all. It's
Yeah, but
painful.
it's tough when you're starting out, you
Yeah,
know. It's really hard to know what to look for and what to be aware of. And when you're going for your first no hit run, that's just sort of how you have to do it, is like you just keep on doing the same thing over and over until it finally works. Um but as you get a little bit more experience, you know, that's the kind of mindset that you want. You really want to focus on learning the game very, very deeply, so that and figuring out how to solve these things for yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Like find yourself a
yeah.
way to do it and not trying to mimic, because the idea I always think with Hitless is more like, okay, find your way to do it and what you feel comfortable with it. Because for example, I was you know that I'm doing Dark Souls 3 right now, and Iskara was the one that helped me route the game. Well, reroute. And when I reached Jorm, I had problem fighting him the way he does it, because what he does is that he stay under him and bait either the slam
Oh yeah.
or the stomp, and it's
Hmm.
really difficult because I cannot see on time the stomp.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
way faster.
That's
Just
yeah.
yeah,
That's
but
something
this
that
stomp is
a lot of people
painful.
struggle with. It's difficult to identify properly, but you know, there are good like visual cues for that. So if you know what to look for, it's a personal preference thing. I think I look at his left knee or something like that,
Yeah, I
but some
also do
people look
that.
at his hands, and it's just a personal preference thing, whatever works for you. But being aware of those things, it's hard to notice those on your own. It's good to have some input from others, to help figure those things out.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
originally my first run was Dark Souls 1, and then I switched over to Dark Souls 3 after that. And then basically ever since Elden Ring came out, it's been a bit of back and forth between Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring. And that's actually where I am right now, is back to Elden Ring. So but yeah, that's sort of been the journey.
And when you did Dark Souls 1, how long did it take you for that run?
A bit over a month, something like 5 or 6 weeks. It wasn't like terribly long. Like Dark Souls 3 took me longer for sure, because the boss fights are so much more difficult to learn. Um, but even Dark Souls 1, it probably took me something like 5 to 6 weeks. I would say that the strats for Dark Souls 1 actually are pretty decent. And again, like, I'm not throwing shade at anyone. Like, Hob does his runs his own way, and there are different strats for the boss fights. But like, I generally just kind of learned how to fight the bosses similar to what he was doing at the time, and it still worked out pretty well. There are different strats. You can be more aggressive on certain bosses, and for a while he was doing a thing on like ONS where there's some sort of like kind of scripted kill on Ornstein, but it's a little bit RNG or something like that. But I wasn't really doing any of that kind of stuff. It was mostly just fighting them, kind of normal.
Yeah,
But
stray away basically.
yeah, yeah, so but yeah, it took a while. Like ONS and Four Kings, I think, were the hardest part of Dark Souls 1, and maybe a bit of Sif, because of the way that he hops on you.
Oh,
His paws can catch you.
I
Yeah.
got a PB1. Well, not PB1, but a distance to that. I
Oh
really want to
no.
know. I really want to know who in the right mind decide. Oh, we're going to give hitboxes to the boss. You know?
Yeah, really, no kidding. And I think they have gotten better at that generally, but it's still an issue even in Elden Ring. There are times when bosses can fall on you. I saw a clip the other day of Morgott
Oh,
falling on top of somebody, which is weird. Like, he does hop in the air sometimes, but I've never seen him land on a player and actually stagger them and damage them or whatever. It was very bizarre. So they've gotten better, but it's still not perfect. It's how it is.
as long as there's no lingering hitboxes like in Dark Souls 2, I'm happy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's even a bit of that in Elden Ring. I lost a run to
Yikes.
Malekith. There's a I saw it happen to someone else with Godfrey recently, but if there is an active hitbox at the moment that it goes into phase transition,
Oh,
like when there's a cutscene,
yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
that hitbox can linger, and that's what happened. Like, I staggered Malekith, and I was moving towards his head to take a riposte, and I just got hit by nothing. and
Oh, like the
goodbye 2 hours.
like the phantom hitbox of Orson Smog.
Yep. Yeah,
Oh
exactly the same
god.
thing. Been over 10
10
years
years
and
they
they
didn't
still
fix it.
yeah,
How?
I could go on all day about that, but
How?
um yeah,
Oh
so
god.
it just is what it is. Like maybe it's not as easy to fix as, one might think, but you would imagine that like after 10 years they should have been able to fix that,
Oh
but
yeah, that's for sure. Apparently
apparently
not.
not.
I mean,
So,
if they haven't fixed it, it's either because it's intended to work that way, it's not broken, or they don't know how to
yeah.
fix it. It's either one of those three things.
Yeah, imagine it being intentional. They want lingering hitboxes in
Oh my
the
god.
boss fights. That would be horrible. So,
Horrible. It will be
but
horrible.
yeah, I've spent most of my time doing runs in Dark Souls 3. And yeah, I did go back to Dark Souls 1 at one point, but I just don't think I enjoy running that game as much as I originally did for whatever reason. Maybe I'll go back and try it again at some point, but I just really like the way the game feels with Dark Souls 3. The combat, the
Oh
movement, the
yeah.
amount of control that you have. So it's the one that felt the best for me when it comes to challenge runs. But I have to say, I've actually been really
Hmm.
interested in
Hot
Dark
take.
Souls 2 because
Your hot take incoming, best soul?
the
The hot take?
I don't have much of a hot take on the Souls games, but I used to really not like Dark Souls 2 for a long time, but the more that I played it, the more that I appreciate it. And I think it would be really interesting to try because there's so many options and it's got a fairly open design. Like, there's so many places you can go at the beginning.
Yep.
And there's so many cool little tools that you have in the game. Like, I forget what it's called. It's like the water that it lowers the or the level requirements for a spell by 1 or something like
Oh
that. I
yeah,
never knew
yeah.
that
It
those
lowered it. Yeah,
yeah,
it lowered, like they are like jellies. I think they are weird
something like
jellies. Yeah,
that. Yeah.
they
But
lower
there's
the
so many cool little
requirement.
mechanics like that that would be really fun to experiment with and test. And I think over time that's something that I've realized is like I really enjoy runs where there's a lot for you to experiment with and try. There's a lot for like the routing is a challenge. It's not so much the grind for a run. It's, trying to figure out all the things that make it possible. That's what's really, really fun about certain runs. Um, like one of the like one of my favorite runs, even though I'm not a huge fan of Elden Ring when it comes to no hit runs, like relative to Dark Souls 3. Um, I think Elden Ring is a little bit weaker, but I did all bosses, sorcery only, and that was a really fun run because nobody had done that. So we had, 150 bosses or more to figure out for ourselves, and all of the routing required for that, and that was really, really fun to do.
And
So
when you think
that was
about it, all
probably
the old
yeah.
bosses that on Elden Ring that have been done, they have such different routing though. Like you have the
Oh
first
yeah,
one that is Gino. You have the banjo that he did all normally, and then he did only incantations. I think, and
right.
then
That's correct.
and then you have George that is only magic, and I think it's
Hmm.
each boss is killed with a different magic. I think also.
Something like that. We acquire every offensive sorcery in the game and we use every single one of them on at least one boss fight. So there are 60 offensive spells total. There's really like 57 and then there's 3 support sorceries, but you can use those to kill bosses. So I'll round it up to 60.
Yeah, that's
Um
really cool. Now I have a
yeah.
question. Now I just saw something that I've been playing a lot of Souls. I never knew Clorantis was here.
So this is only in New Game Plus 2. If
Oh, okay,
this is
okay,
that was Claranthi plus 2.
okay, okay,
Um
okay.
So that's only there. I forget if it's in New Game Plus or New Game Plus 2, but that's one of the cool things about doing this run on New Game Plus 7 is that there are certain things that are available, because of like the New Game Plus
This
locations.
cycle, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
was getting
normally would never see
confused
that.
because I was like,
Yeah.
wait, if there's Clorantis there, why people don't pick it up for any percent?
Yeah. It's not there in New Game, so you'll never
Sadness,
see that.
sadness.
um,
I was on my way to
yeah.
boot Dark Souls 3 and get it.
No, it won't be there.
Oh,
That is
rip.
but And that's also one thing that's kind of cool. If you do the item and enemy randomizer, one of the options there is to include new game plus locations. So if you know
Oh,
about
that's so
those little
cool.
locations, then it's like, oh, there's another item check that I have here that's super easy or whatever. So
Oh, that's so
it's kind of
cool.
it's kind of handy to know those little locations. Oh, and I wasn't even paying attention in this running section. I was picking up Titanite that I don't need, and I mess up right here.
The
Like
brain rot.
I'm not supposed to throw a firebomb on this dog because I can't kill this dog on New Game Plus 7. And I realized, oops, I messed up. I have
Oops.
to bone out. And I
Whoops.
nearly died there. Like,
Is the
this
brain rot
was,
of any percent?
yeah, this was such a scuffed run in so many ways.
You
We got
know what they
another
say.
little,
If not a no-hit run without a
yeah.
scuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We got another little mishap coming up in a little bit here. We'll see it in a moment when we get here. I'm trying to remember when I get it. I think I get it after this bonfire. Maybe it's when I come back later. I can't remember.
Well,
I think it happens in a moment though.
we can see. Also, well,
Yeah.
you say that you started with Dark Souls 1. Now,
Mhm.
I have two questions. What decided you to change to Dark Souls 3 beside the gameplay? Because right now I'm enjoying a lot of Dark Souls 3, mostly because everything feels so clean, dude. Like the game
Yeah.
feels so clean to play, so precise. I don't know, it has
Mhm.
something so cool about it. And
Yeah.
what made you decide to continue doing no hit? Because there's people that they do only one run and they say, okay, I'm done.
Mhm.
What
Yeah,
made
that's a good question. So, the reason that I got into no hit runs. Oh, this was a scary moment here. I think I
oh
get chased in the water. Oh no, I
okay
don't. I'm fine here. It's
okay
not
okay
that. Um, Okay, so we got. I think the mishap comes up in a little bit, not right now. So one of the big reasons I got into no hit runs was because I was watching Hob and Nico, and they were both doing marathon runs at the time. So like I'm seeing all of these, from software games. They're hopping back and forth between every single one of them. So they were a big reason why I got into no hit was because I saw them doing all these awesome runs. It was like, wow, this is really cool. I kind of want to try this for myself. But I saw them doing you know, not just a single game, they're bouncing around. And basically, like I was saying earlier, Dark Souls 1 at the time was the game that I knew the best of the series. So that's why I started with that one. But after that, like I saw so many people doing trilogy no hit, or they were bouncing around to each of the games in the trilogy. Like they would start with one and then hop to Dark Souls 2 and then to Dark Souls 3, whatever. But basically, it just comes down to I knew and liked Dark Souls 1 the best at that time. And then Dark Souls 3 was my next favorite at the time. And so that was just like the natural progression was like, okay, I did a run in Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 3 is next. I see so many people doing trilogy or trying to hop around from one game to another, and that's just sort of how they do it. And it just what made sense at the time.
yeah
But
sure
once I started doing runs in Dark Souls 3, I realized how much I enjoyed playing that game, and I just kept on continuing with it because it just felt good. Like it was just it felt good to run. I enjoyed the combat with the bosses, and I just saw that there was so much potential to do more stuff. I was like, all right, yeah, let's just keep on going with it. So we're gonna come up to a mishap here in a moment, and I'm gonna
Ooh.
come back to the second question you had after that.
Sure, don't
So
worry.
yeah, I think this is where it happens here. Let me see. So right now, what I'm doing, surprisingly, we use a lot of pyromancy on this run because it's actually very strong, even at soul level 1 with no weapon upgrades. It's actually very strong on certain bosses, and it makes a lot of sense
Oh,
to use pyromancy. So I'm going over here for a pyrotome, but I have to wait for a moment and let this crab patrol. So while he's
crap.
doing that, um, basically there's a lot of runners that I saw running Dark Souls 3 at the time. I think it had a real surge in popularity around that time. And I saw all these people doing all these cool runs. Um, a lot of people were doing like SO1 no upgrades and those kinds of runs. So right here, I get the pyrotome and I get that armor set for later, but I didn't realize that I was playing with Steam in online mode and I get
No
invaded
way!
here. So I've had this happen before on a different run. Yeah, I shake my camera here because I know I messed up big time. But luckily, you can save this if you have not gone to the Crystal Sage boss fight yet. So you can run into a boss arena, and once you trigger the boss fight, this guy blocks me at the door too. Like
Oh my
I'm
god.
freaking out in my head right now. Oh man. And so I once you go up and trigger the boss fight, then you can just homeward bone out of there. Like it'll despawn the invader once you've started the boss fight. But I had a problem once in another run where I already killed Crystal Sage, and then I went and
Oh
picked up that Pyro Tome, and I got invaded, so I had nowhere to go, and I eventually died. Like there was no way I could get out of it.
no.
But here I knew that I could salvage it because I had, I knew what I needed to do, and so I just run up to the boss arena, despawn the invader, and bone out. And the only problem with doing it this way is that the next time that I come back to the Crystal Sage boss fight, it'll play out a little bit differently at the beginning, but that's not that big a deal. So yeah, here is where like I screw up and I close my game so I can change Steam over to offline mode. But that was the mishap that I was talking about.
God
So
damn.
yeah, so when it comes to this game though, and like why would I continue doing runs in it? It was mostly just because I enjoyed playing the game a lot, and I saw a lot of people doing really cool runs, and I just thought, I just want to continue with this game. It seems really fun. I'm enjoying the no hit grind, and like I am not at the time, especially. I was like, I'm not some amazing runner or anything like that. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing, and I'd like to keep doing it. So, but the more that I kept on doing runs in this game, the more it just felt very satisfying to overcome all these challenges. Whether it was, doing a run at soul level 1 or doing a run with all bosses or whatever, it just feels like a very fun game to do challenges in. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's very satisfying. Like I don't know, I just feel like it's a bigger accomplishment for me to do a run in this game than something like Dark Souls 1.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
see
just
it.
really what it comes down to.
Now this leads to the next question. What is exactly hitless for you? So some people there is some people in the community that likes doing hitless because the feeling of accomplishment, oh, I did something hard, I'm so proud of myself. There is people that they like it to brag. I'm not saying that everyone. There's people, yeah, I'm so good at the game. I completed without taking a single hit. And there's people that they say that something more personal. Like for example, we have the famous case of Alex El Capo, a Spanish runner, that the only run he did was Sekiro, and he said, "Wait, I can finish the game without taking a single hit. I can do whatever I want." And he had like this click on his life, and he decided to start losing weight and all of that, and changing a lot of things on his life.
Oh, nice. Well, I think like so before I ever started doing no hit, I was actually kind of interested in trying out speed runs, and I tried a little something in Dark Souls 1, but it didn't really work out very well for me. I just kind of lost interest in it. So I tried that for a little while. So I think I was always looking for some sort of challenge with these games. I pick up a gold coin here because it helps with the farming later for storyteller stuff. Something you would normally never bother picking up, but I didn't even
Unless
know
you're
about that
bugged.
until like maybe 2 days before that or something. Somebody told me about it. And so it was weird how like all these little details, you still find new things that you can work in, even after you've been working on a run for 2 months. But I feel like, these games are naturally just very challenging to begin with. So it feels very satisfying to do challenge runs in them. I think that's just what it comes down to. I was always looking for something more to do with these games other than a casual playthrough. And no hit is nice because, unlike speed runs, you could just do the same speed run over and
Over
over
and over,
forever.
yeah.
That's not a good way to do it. There are better ways to go about it, but you could just keep on going with it and like never really be satisfied. Maybe not really like be satisfied, but never hit a point where you're like, all right, I'm ready to move on from it. But with no hit, you've got like a singular thing that you're trying to complete. And once you complete it, it's like, awesome, I've done that. I can move on to, another
Another
challenge.
instance,
And
yeah.
yeah, I like that a bit more.
Yeah.
But I also like over time I realize, there's more to challenge runs than just, going fast or just doing no hit or whatever. And I did some other stuff too. Like I did a number of runs that involved like the item enemy randomizer. Nothing for no hit, but like I did item enemy randomizer speed runs for a while, and I did a couple of deathless runs with the item enemy randomizer. And those are really, really fun because they challenge your game knowledge. You know, how well do
Yeah,
you really know the game?
exactly.
Different weapons, and how can you handle all the different enemies? How well do you know the areas and you can navigate safely, you know, with these horrible circumstances in the randomizer and stuff like that. So I think like overall, no hit is definitely the biggest type of challenge that I do, but it is just one kind of challenge among all, you know, all sorts of challenges out there. So like if you're just getting started with no hit, like it is probably a good thing to just focus on really, you know, working towards that single goal, accomplishing it, and then moving on. But there's plenty more out there that you can do. And no hit is not like the end all be all of challenge runs. It is just one type of challenge run out there. And there's many, many different things that you can do. But I do particularly enjoy no hit runs for sure. They're like clearly my favorite. It's just like the way that I like to play the game. Um, but I think for me, I kind of mentioned it earlier. As I kept on going, you know, it's really satisfying to complete a run. There is that moment of accomplishment where it's like, yes, all right, I did it, woohoo. But I think for me, what I really enjoy is routing runs, like figuring, you know, coming up with some sort of challenge, some sort of idea, especially something that has never been done before, because there's no other strats out there already that somebody already figured out. You have to figure it out for yourself.
Of course,
And
and you
it's
need
really,
to
really,
create your
yeah,
own strats. That actually happened to
yeah.
me while I was running Metal Gear Rising. There
Oh
was
man.
there wasn't really a lot of information. There was a Vegax guy. He was technically one of the first people to do it. So he was like the people with the most knowledge of the game. But at some point there was some strats that they weren't working for me, right? They
Yeah,
weren't
right,
working for
right.
me. So okay, I need to find a way to fix it. How do I do this? So I had to do like go to speed runs and find a way to deal for myself. Like I had to watch speedruns, I had to talk with other speedrunners, I have to try things for myself. Even there, I have you play Metal Gear Rising?
I have not. I actually have it in my Steam library, and I want to play it, but like I know I'm roughly familiar with how it goes. It seems very intense.
It's really fun. I strongly recommend it. But there is a boss called Monsoon. That basically this boss you cannot beat him without parries, right? You have
Oh
to.
my gosh. Yeah.
So the problem, what is the problem? The parry system in Metal Gear Rising works differently than in games like in Sekiro,
Like
for
in these
example.
games. Or yeah, yeah.
Like in
Gotcha.
Sekiro, like in Souls. For example, let's say you have like in Sekiro, you can parry a 5 attacks, right? You can parry 5 attacks, and but on Metal Gear Rising, you cannot truly parry them, right? You can block the 5 attack, and the last attack is that you parry. Okay,
Hmm.
and now here's the problem: this enemy is the only enemy that has such fast attacks that you need to keep spamming. And if you play with controller, this is an issue.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is an
big
issue.
time.
Not because we'll say, oh, what's the problem? You just spam the parry button. There is no parry button. Like
Oh, what?
the way you parry is that you need to click the attack button and the going forward, like how you go forward at the same time.
What? That is wild. So
Yeah,
it's like,
let's say
oh
that they
man.
didn't think really well how to do the mechanic. So what
Jeez.
I managed is that the same thing that Avegax did, I changed to like I literally put my controller away, changed to keyboard because
Oh my
it
goodness.
let me spam faster.
Yeah, yeah. I know there are some Sekiro runners who have that same problem where there are I think there's an attack on Ishin
Oh
that
yeah. I know
yeah, it's like
we.
a flurry, yeah, it's like the flurry attack, and you technically can parry it, but you have to spam the button so fast that like some runners just really struggle to do it, and it's just not reliable. Um but yeah, like that's the thing is like sometimes you gotta reach out and look for something new, but it's very satisfying to work through something like that. And
It's super super fun, to be honest. It's like that feeling of learning and practicing and see, oh wait, this is consistent, let's try it. It's really nice, to be honest.
Absolutely. Also, while we're here, this is the Abyss Watchers fight, and normally this fight takes nowhere near this long. But like,
well, at least for you, because this is just a normal a normal Abyss Watcher for me.
Well, like, yeah, sometimes it does take a while when you have bad luck, but our damage is so low, and all three of these guys at once can be such a problem.
Yeah.
The best way to do this fight is to try and get the red-eyed watcher to attack the main watcher for you and do the damage for you, because you just don't do that much damage. Like, I'm doing these backstabs, and the dagger has the highest critical attack rating in the game. Yeah, this was bad right there. I should not have gone for scary. That. Like right here, no, red is dead, of course.
No,
but red does way more damage than we ever do. And
yeah,
that's
I can
like
imagine.
the best way to do that. But it all comes down to RNG. You have very little control over this fight. So sometimes this fight, I've had to take like 5 minutes, and I've had to take like 15 minutes. So you really just never know how it's gonna go. But yeah, like normally, even if you don't get the best RNG in the world, normally you can, find some opportunity to go in, punish, and do a bunch of damage, and then move on. But that's just not how it goes in New Game Plus 7. You just don't have that much damage. So
it's unlucky, I guess.
Phase 2, phase 2 is really fun. Like when it's finally down to a one-on-one fight and you can actually be aggressive, it's really fun.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed phase 2 a lot. I don't really enjoy the phase 1 that much, I would say. I mean, it's an interesting fight, but it's kind of tricky with the other two following you sometimes. It becomes tricky for sure. But then it's just a one-on-one with the Fire Abyss Watcher. It's amazing, to be honest. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so going back to, when it comes to like what's really satisfying, like long term when you're doing these runs, I think coming up with a challenge that, something that's new to you and maybe it's never been done before, and just, spending all the time to figure out everything, how to make it work, that's really, really satisfying. And those are like my favorite runs, is the ones where, I just approached it in whatever way I wanted to and figured everything out from scratch. So like the Elden Ring Sorcery All Bosses, probably not my favorite run, but it is one of my favorites because like I had so much fun experimenting with all the different spells, learning how to acquire them, because nobody had done that before. Like acquiring every single spell, that was never done. And there's some really challenging spells to get.
Oh, so, I can imagine, actually.
Yeah. Like if anybody's familiar in the Radon Arena, at the north end of that is the War Dead Catacombs, where all the enemies are fighting. There's a spell in the basement of that catacomb, and trying to get it is just RNG. So you can do a little bit to like mitigate the RNG to make it as reasonable as possible, but it's a very scary moment when you try and go get that spell, and you do it as early as possible. That's all I can say.
It's one of those moments that you wish the alluring school worked the way they work in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, no kidding. But we found a way to make it work, so it was all good in the end. But yeah, again, that's one of the runs. Like it was a run that was really annoying to grind for, because the resets can be really, really tough.
Oh yeah.
But it was very fun to make the whole run come together, to figure out everything to make it work and to actually do it. It was very, very satisfying. So even though it's not my overall favorite run, it is very high up there.
Now that we're talking about favorite run, what would you say was your favorite run until now? That you
I don't really know. So I already mentioned the sorcery run, but I have 3 other runs that I can think of in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, not in an order. Like, I don't like putting in order because you will this is your not. Just in general, what would you say your top 3 top 5 favorite runs in not order, no order.
Yeah, so the sorcery run is up there. That's definitely one of my favorites. I would say probably the next run. Well, not necessarily the next run, but like another one that really comes to mind is no bonfire any %. Which is really cool in this game, because the game is not designed to work in that way. Like Dark Souls 2 is, you can play through the whole game without interacting with a bonfire, and it works. But in Dark Souls 3, it's basically soul level 1, no upgrades. but you have access to a couple different things that help make it nice. But like other than that, that's pretty much what it is. Um, but also like the reason why I like that run so much is because like just trying to figure out how to make that run work, how to test it, and how to route it is a real challenge. Like I pity any poor console runner who tries to
Oh
do that
yeah.
run because you just don't have the tools available to figure out how to make this stuff work. But on PC, you know, you've got all these practice tools and cheat engine and everything, and it makes it so much more manageable. But that was definitely one of my favorites.
Like you will
And
need to
like,
know how the map is interlinked, where you can
mhm,
find any like, the drop for example. I know that for example on marathon runs, you go for the +9 going to the lake, if I remember correctly.
right. You go down to the lake for large shards to go to +7 early, and then you go fight Dancer and go through Lothar Castle to get all the Titanite chunks, so you can go to +9 early. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
idea.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
idea.
but
So
yeah, you can't do that when you can't travel around the world. Like you
yeah,
can't warp from one
exactly.
bonfire to another. And also you can't refill your heals. You can't and like it's funny because like
Now it become more tricky because we don't
yeah.
have the healing gem from Dark Souls 2. So there is no
Yeah,
really
the
way
life
to refill
gems,
your,
right.
yeah, the life gem. You don't really
Right.
have a way to refill your HP beside Estus.
Right.
Oh
Well, you have
god.
your Estus. Well, the idea is to start with the assassin class because you have spook, and so you prevent a lot of fall damage. Um, but what I did was there's a shield in undead settlement that has a blessed infusion and that does health
Oh,
regen, so you pick that up and that really helps regenerate your health when you don't want to use an Estus. So
makes
it's a very
sense.
cool run because like it's those little challenges that you have to overcome. Well, if I can't heal, how can I manage my health? And well, I really like that run because like the only other person who had done that run was Gino, and he had done it like 4 years before I touched it. And
So
if
there
you
was
go and
better
compare,
way, yeah, better ways to improve it.
yeah, that well, maybe not even better, but just different. Like what he did was he went and fought Dancer pretty much right away while you're in High Wall before going to Undead Settlement.
Oh god.
Um, so he fought Dancer. He went up and got Red Tearstone Ring, and he came back down and fought Vord and continued on. And he basically maintained Red Tearstone the entire run. And he used Spook to make sure that he wouldn't take fall damage, and it worked out. But what I did was instead of getting Red Tearstone, I went and got Lloyd's Ring,
Okay.
which, does more damage at full health.
Okay.
And I just managed to keep my health at full for the entire run. If I needed to heal, I would, but otherwise I had that blessed shield equipped to do the health regen. So he may have had a little more damage than me, but Lloyd's Ring was still good enough to work for me. So there's a couple cool little differences in our runs just because of stuff like that. But going through and figuring out like how to there's a couple of running sections in particular that are a problem because what you have to do is you have to go over to Deacons before you go to Abyss Watchers because you sort of go over to the side. You kill Crystal Sage, you kill the Deacons, and then you come back and go down into Farron Keep and go forward to Abyss Watchers and Wolnir and into Irithyll. Um, but the problem is that area after Crystal Sage, right before the cleansing chapel, there's like all the
Yes, yes.
annoying dogs that teleport, and that's why you throw a black firebomb and you throw a skull if you need to, and all this stuff.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, you have to go back through that area backwards, and you don't
Oh.
get you don't get so far. Like if you get far enough away from an area, the game will unload it completely. And then when it loads it up again, everything is reset. Any enemies that you killed will respawn anyway. It doesn't matter.
Wait,
But
what?
not that area. So like the two human NPCs that you have to run past,
Yes.
all of the dogs, all of the archers,
Oh
all of those
god.
have moved a little bit because of the way you run through there the first time.
Of
So when
course.
you go back through there the second time, you have to figure out a way to get through there with all of these enemies that like have changed a little bit. And it's really tough to test that. And that's why I say like imagine if you're a console runner, you would have to run through that area, go through the cathedral running section, kill the deacons, come back, and then test that area a second time to see what works. And that's how you would have to do it every single time. But on PC with like cheat engine and stuff, you can do all this stuff about like warping
100
around
of
the map
times.
and
Yeah,
stuff like that. It makes it so much easier to test that. And that's one thing, like you would just not be able to do that if you were a console runner. It would be wildly impractical.
totally,
And
totally.
and there's one other area that has a cool like detail with the running section. When you're running through Irithyll, you run through the main part of Irithyll with all the scary stuff. You know, normally you branch through there, right?
Yep.
And then after that, you go down into a room that's very dark, and it has a bunch of invisible enemies on the ground, or like half invisible enemies on the ground. And it's right before you go outside and then go down into the water area. So what you would do on No Bonfire, you actually have some options, but what I ended up doing was from there, you would go up and kill Ponif, you would go up and kill Aldrich, and then there's that tower next to Anor Londo. There's like a PvP Covenant woman over there or something like that, but you can drop down through that tower to get back down. But then you have to go through that dark room a second time, and all of those like half invisible enemies, they did not get reset at any point. So when you ran through there, they all moved and tried to attack you.
Of course.
And when you come back the second time, they're still in those positions wherever they were when they tried to attack you. Basically, they've moved. It's not the same the second time through. So I never really found anything 100% consistent. To some extent, you just have to kind of hope and go for it. And I got lucky, I guess, because I couldn't figure out anything else for that area. The only other option would be, and then from that point, you go down and kill Yorm. The alternative would be, once you've run through Irithyll, go down and kill Yorm, and then go back up through Irithyll dungeon somehow, and then go to Ponif and Aldrich, which seems even worse.
God.
There's a lot of stuff that you would have to like figure out for the running sections and figure out what works.
Yeah, just
and it's
testing
really,
and testing.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Go on.
No, I mean that for this thing you have like to truly find a way to test all this thing, because you don't really know what to do, because the game is not supposed to work this way. So you have to
exactly.
Yeah. Now,
yeah, and that's what's so cool about that run. That's like what makes it so unique, is that the game wasn't really designed with that in mind, that you would go through and play without interacting with a bonfire, but it does work and it's really interesting. So it's a really cool run.
Yeah. Now, Flux has a question here. How did you go to Jorm without doing the dungeon?
There's dungeon skip. If you have spook, we start with the assassin class that has spook, and dungeon skip is you see it on speed runs as well, and it's very useful on no hit runs.
It's really simple. Like you you pass because I was thinking you were not doing a spook escape, but no, dungeon escape. So what you do, Flux, you pass this area that it has like this event, like this weird enemy with a spear, and you glitch a bit to the edge, use a spook, and you land exactly on an edge that if you land there, you don't receive full damage. If you land way more, you die. So you escape all the dungeon doing that, basically. It's really nice. It's a really nice escape, to be honest. There are some escapes of a speedrun that are really used on no hit. They are truly appreciated, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, there's some good stuff there. Like, and some of the parkour or whatever can be kind of difficult.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But depending on what you're doing, you know, it can be worth it to, like you were saying earlier about Metal Gear Rising, sometimes it's worth it to look at speed runs to get an idea about how to deal with an area in a different way and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good to draw, you know, kind of inspiration and ideas from all different sources, not just copy one single person's route and don't learn anything else, like, which is exactly what I did at the beginning. It's good to, you know, try different things and come up with all these different ideas and see what works for you. That's
exactly.
That you want to do as a runner over time, is figure out what works for you, because everybody's just a little bit different.
Exactly.
But yeah. And then so I don't want to like ramble too much about any specific run, but there are a couple other runs that did stand out as like really interesting ones. But if you had any other questions about the No Bonfire one or anything,
no, keep going. Like anything that you find interesting, because it sounds so crazy how you managed to route this. It's actually like everyone on the Hitless community, this is our hyperfixation. So hearing someone talk about it is actually crazy. So keep going without when you think it's enough, you tell me, don't worry.
Oh, good. There is one more thing about the no bonfire run that like it's very silly, but I always appreciate it. Like I really think back fondly on it. So when you're done at the end of that run, you get all the way through, the middle of the game where you're not interacting with bonfires. You kill the twin princes, and then at that point you have to go back to Firelink Shrine. And at that point, you have some options because you've been running through the whole game and you are going back to Firelink Shrine and you have all of these souls. Potentially, you might have gotten all these upgrade materials and stuff. If you wanted to, you could go and upgrade a weapon all the way to like +10 and then go fight Cinder. But for whatever reason, I just chose to not do that. Like that final trip to Firelink, I treated it as like a formality. It's the only way that I can get to Cinder, so that is the only thing that I'm doing is using it to get to Cinder. Okay. So I went in to fight Cinder with a +0 Storm Ruler, and God. It was like a 10-minute long fight, and it's hilarious because on a run like no bonfire, you might imagine that like weapon durability might be an issue, but this is Dark Souls 3 we're talking about, so weapon durability is not an issue. Except for the Storm Ruler. The Storm Ruler only has 10 durability.
What?
And when you're fighting Cinder, it will break in about 3 minutes or so. So I actually had to get and use repair powder during phase transition on Cinder because the weapon was going to break otherwise. And it's just hilarious that I go through the entire game. I've got no problems with weapon durability, but the single final fight at the end of the run, I got to repair my weapon in the middle of it. It's just so goofy. But the other thing that happened in the Cinder fight was I defeated Cinder, and I don't know if anybody is familiar with this, but there's a little bit of a glitch with the bonfire. Normally when you enter the arena, Cinder is sitting there around a bonfire. And that's where you go. You link the first flame at the end of the fight. That's how the game ends. But what happens is like the bonfire is really just a pile of ash on the ground during the fight. And then once you defeated Cinder, that coiled sword will spawn in. Well, if you're standing right over the center of the bonfire, the moment that the coiled sword spawns in, you can clip through the map and fall to your death. And I did that intentionally at the end of the run, just for fun.
Oh my God! No way, you got. That's amazing.
It's funny too because like I think about 2 years ago, the Spanish team Hitless was hosting their like winter fundraising event.
Yeah.
And one of the runners accidentally did that without knowing that it was a thing. And it's really funny when somebody encounters it without knowing it. But I like specifically tried to do it at the end of a no-hit run, which it's kind of precise to figure out where to stand. But I was really happy like to actually do that at the end of a no-hit run. Like I know some people would look at it like,
let's go.
Yeah, right. Some people would look at it like, oh, you clipped through the map and fell to your death. But I mean, the run was done at that point. I defeated the final boss. There was nothing else that was going to kill me. It was just for fun.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think even in the rules is kill. I don't know if the rule is reaching credits or killing Cinder, like the final boss. So I don't.
There was some discussion about it because of that run, or maybe because of a different run or something like that. No, I know what it was. So one other thing I'll mention is that for a while I was a verifier on Team Hitless, and I simply left because I could not like continue devoting the time and energy to verifying runs and all that stuff. So I just, after a while I was like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and step away from it. But while I was a verifier, someone came into my chat in the middle of a stream and was like, hey, would you count this as a hit? And it's somebody who's working on God Run, and he's doing Dark Souls 3 as like game 2 or 3 of God Run, and he clips through the map at the end of the Cinder fight without knowing about it. And like, you're in the middle of a marathon run, you died in the middle of a marathon run. Like, some people would look at that and say like, yeah, that's going to invalidate a run. And like, for me, I mean, I know I'm biased because I did it at the end of a run myself, but I wouldn't count it because
I think that me neither, because that's a glitch that I mean, if you have the knowledge about it, it is hard to replicate. So if it happens, just unlucky, like you should not be like this happened actually on Hades 2. there is a bug on Hades that if you fight the final boss, we certain summon, you make him like spawn more throwable objects. Like I don't know if you have played Hades, so I'm going to call
Only a
it.
little bit, but
Oh,
that's fine. Go ahead.
okay. You know that there's like you have your cast, the red thingy you throw.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, so if you play with a summon, and that throw the skulls to that summon, when the skulls get out, they are going to become this cast, and those casts interact with a power up you get, that is the lightning rod, and that makes doing more damage to that in a way, but it's a bug. Some people were saying
Yeah.
that, oh, if you know about this, and you do it intentionally, that could invalidate your run. But at some
Oh
point,
man.
of course, I think it's like normal to invalidate because of that. But it's such, yeah, at some point we decide, okay, that's actually so hard to intentionally not do it, because you are not thinking about it, that we decide that it should not be counted as a reason to invalidate. And I think that that's the same for this glitch.
Yeah.
Like it's no
Mhm.
like it's hard to take it in account, because you don't know where you are positioning. You are like, oh, I finally kill thing, and then you see you glitch out. Wait, what? It's
Yeah. It's something that you'll see. I think you see it more and more with Elden Ring too. It's that unfortunately these games are just they're not perfectly designed. There are simply flaws in the game design. There's oversights, there's these weird bugs, weird interactions. The games are not perfect.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
there's a thing in Elden Ring in particular where um certain bosses, like I'm not really sure exactly why it is, but certain bosses will randomly just stop. They will
Oh yeah.
just completely stop in place and do nothing for like maybe for 5 seconds and maybe for like a full minute or more until something happens. And it's really really bizarre, and it's like, well, what do you do in that? Because if you're in that situation and the boss is just standing there, and say you, like, I don't know, you poison them or something, you could just stand there and just let the boss get poisoned. But like you have so little control over that, it's so hard to make a judgment call on what the player should do in that situation. It's just very very annoying. But again, these games are simply not perfectly designed.
Yeah,
There are flaws to
exactly.
them, and you just gotta kind of accept that that's a thing. It just happens sometimes, and whatever happens in a run, do whatever makes the most sense to you. And yeah, it's
And live
bizarre.
with it,
This
basically. At the
Yeah,
end, at
actually,
least Hitless. At the end, it's just a personal challenge.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely,
we have Team Hitler, like
absolutely.
it's the moderation, like if you want to be on the page or the community in a way. But we have to remember that Hitless and challenge run in general. I'm not talking only about Hitless. I'm talking about speedrun and know
Yep.
that challenge in general. They are personal things. And
Hmm.
that's first before the like what the verifiers say.
Yeah, and it's not yeah, and I'm not trying to harp on anyone. I'm not
Oh, no, no,
trying
no, no, no,
to
me
poke on
neither.
any. Yeah, it's simply that, like, I see a lot of discussion and a lot of people asking questions about you know what do runners do in something only runs. And
Oh
I think
yeah, the old discussion
and
on the
like,
weapon only, yeah.
yeah, stuff like that. And that's like a never-ending discussion. I think any discussion about this will make it very clear, very fast, that not everyone agrees. People simply have different opinions on this kind of thing. And at the end of the day, yeah, it's a personal challenge. Do whatever makes the most sense for you. And I think when we're talking about this kind of stuff, when we're talking about something only, it's just a name for the run.
Yeah,
It's not meant to perfectly describe the run and the rules behind it and everything like that. But that's cool because people can take it as far as they want. Like there's I know at least one person in Elden Ring who's been working on a run where it's like S stock only, and literally the only thing that they use the entire run is the S stock. They
oh, I
don't
think
use
it was
heals,
a
they don't
smoker.
use any items, anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. It's really cool to see
Because
someone try it in that way.
yeah, it's a personal
Yeah.
that you put it that way. Like those are
Yep.
not the it was Petri, true Joe. It was Petri. Thank you, who was working on that, I think. And that
I think
because
that's right. Yeah.
that's his personal challenge. Like, okay, you could use this and this and this. Yeah, but he doesn't want to. He wants to do it
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
way.
It's really cool to see people, take an idea like that and push it to some extreme like that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that every single runner should be held to that standard. Do whatever makes the most sense for you and just have fun with it. That's all that really matters in the
Yeah,
end.
agreed.
So, and I think like I'm not, like I said, I'm not, trying to criticize or anything like that. But in my case, like I did sorcery only, but I know some people may not like that because I did use 2 incantations as buffs during that run. And the thing that is, I never damaged any enemies with these incantations, which is why I find that to be totally fine.
Yeah.
If you can use an Ash of War to buff, if you can use a consumable to buff, why not go ahead and allow an incantation as long as you're not damaging enemies with it? So, like for me, when I was doing my run, the definition that I took of sorcery only was that 100% of the damage I dealt came from sorceries.
And
Or
that's
it was
that's also what I
delivered by
did on my
sorceries.
sorcery
Yeah.
only on DS2. I also did that.
Mhm.
For example, I did that, but on the forest, when you need to throw things to the trees to make them make sound, I use the bow.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's totally fine. And um like the when I if I try and explain the whole notion of like the something only discussion to someone else who's like not familiar with challenge runs, I like to use the example in Dark Souls 3 of, let's say you want to do Claymore only. Well, some people might say you can't do it because no starting class starts with the Claymore, so you can't even fight Gundyr with the Claymore. And like, you know what, that is a valid point, but surely it, for a lot of people it makes sense to make an exception for that. Okay, well, use your starting gear, or maybe fight the boss fist only if you really want to, or something like that. So do whatever makes sense for you.
No, dog.
But then later on, let's say you're going through Fair and Keep, you're going through the swamp, the thick area. Is it
Yep.
fine to use a dagger and use quick step to go through a little bit faster? And some people would have different ideas of it.
Yeah,
So
it's the never-ending discussion,
yeah,
basically.
it's a never-ending discussion, but I like the idea that there are options for runners. You do it in whatever way makes the most sense for you, and ultimately, when you're talking about something only, it's just the name of the run. It's like when I'm talking about no bonfire in DS3. Well, I had to use a bonfire, so no bonfire is a bit of a misnomer. It's not really, I had to interact with bonfires like 3 or 4 times or whatever it was.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, the idea of no bonfire is just a name. The idea of sorcery only is just a name. It's not meant to perfectly represent everything that the run is about, but I like that some runners do it anyway because, they have to figure things out for themselves. And I'm sure, in all seriousness, those are probably some of the most satisfying runs for
No,
them to
that's for
do
sure. That's for sure.
because nobody else does it that way. So they've got a whole different challenge to work on. So it's really, really cool. But yeah, there's a never ending discussion. And to some extent, I wish people would just let others have their fun. But it's good to like encourage people to try things their own way. I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's like the only thing I really want to come out of that discussion is just, encourage people to do it in whatever way makes sense to them. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
whatever. Like, if they want to follow the rules, go for it. Like, if you want to do it,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
push even more debuff to your run, doesn't matter. But just do whatever you feel more comfortable with at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And okay, yeah, I think I talked about that part enough. There is one
Yeah,
other run that came to mind that I really want to talk about,
uh,
or no, 2 other runs,
yeah.
real
But
quick.
before
So,
before we do that, I have some question here.
yeah, sure.
They asked, at what point in your no hit journey did you start to think about doing your own run thing? To me, learning a route as opposed to developing your own is a different skill set.
Yeah. Um, so I think somewhere around my 3rd run, because what I did was, so I started with Dark Souls 1, any percent, and I copied someone else's run straight up. And then my next run was Dark Souls 3, any percent, and I followed a guide, which helped because, like, I generally followed what that person did, but I started doing, I started learning that, other runners were doing things in a little bit of a different way. So right about there, like on my second or third run, you start getting those ideas of like, there's different ways of doing things. You don't just have to follow one person's route. And then my third run was SL1 any percent, which I didn't follow any guides for. I just knew that SL1 generally used the raw broadsword, and then I followed a route that was similar to what I did on my like leveled any percent, but I figured it out for myself. I just went through and did it on my own, and then like I would ask for help when I needed it. So for me, it was somewhere around like my second to third run is where I started getting the idea, and my third run was where I like actually started doing it my own way. And then and it's funny because my next run after that was all bosses with levels. So I was using the twin blades, but I followed the new guide that had just come out by Gino, Swed, and Geo, which
Oh
was
God.
really, really good at that time. And it's still really, really good. So I generally followed that guide, but even then I started like, I would make changes where it made sense. So I would say just once you've got a couple of runs under your belt, you're probably in a good place to start, trying to route something on your own. Actually, something I didn't think of. Um, After I did my second run was Dark Souls 3 any percent, but after that, I actually went back to Dark Souls 1 for a little bit. And I was working on a couple different things. I was working on one run that I eventually dropped. But what I also did was I routed a run that was just a goofy idea that I had, which was I call it tails percent,
Okay.
which is to go and get all of the weapons that you get by cutting tails
Oh,
from
okay.
yeah. So all the stuff like the gargoyles, gaping dragon, calamite. What's the one? The ancient dragon, all the way down in Ash Lake.
Yeah.
When have you ever seen a no-hit run in Dark Souls 1 go down to Ash Lake? Like never.
Oh,
And it was cool.
this is the moment that Katirana enters the chat and wait, I'm going there always.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're going. Yeah, Caddy or maybe Marcus are going down there because they're doing every run under the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the first time when I tried doing something completely on my own that no one had ever done. So already just like 2 or 3 runs under my belt is about where I started feeling like confident enough to try routing something. And like if I were to go back and try that in Dark Souls 1, I would fundamentally do it differently. But it was a really cool experience to just try something. And, it was really fun. So there's no time when like you need to be doing it any particular way. Just do whatever makes sense for you. But just once you start feeling like generally a little more comfortable in the game, you kind of get the idea of, how the areas go, how the upgrades go. Like I think one thing that was kind of eye-opening was when I was running Dark Souls 3 any percent. So my second run, I was following a guide that did what we were talking about earlier. I got upgraded to +9 very early. And it didn't even occur to me that it might make sense to do, a different upgrade path, do upgrades in a different way. And somebody was in my chat and asking me about it. It was like, "Oh, is your route like +9 or +4?" And I was like fundamentally confused at how you could go through a significant portion of the run at only +4. And it was like, oh, there are actually really like fundamentally different ways of running through the game, like how to actually route it. And it was kind of eye-opening.
It was what? It's such
exactly.
It became such a different game.
Yeah, so just somewhere around there. Just once you've got a couple runs completed and you start seeing that, there's more to the game than what you've been doing in the couple of runs that you've completed, and just being willing to try different stuff out. That's what it comes down to. So, but yeah, something that's kind of how it went for me.
Yeah, I feel that what a big problem that a big portion that runners have, that they don't like to do new things.
Yeah.
I feel that that is a problem. It happens to me also. I'm not the exception.
Same here.
That we are so focused like in a strat, and then but there is a new strat for this boss that you should try. But but I should have to relearn the boss and all of that. It's kind of tricky, but at least I like to say that I'm the type of person that enjoy learning new ways, because sometimes
Definitely.
sometimes we don't really have a problem with certain boss or with certain section, and we don't really know what to do until a new way find it, and we try a new strat. And I think that everyone should know how to Like, be open to try new things, you know? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, the grind for a no hit run, you're just sort of mindlessly throwing yourself at this challenge until enough things don't go wrong. Like, you're just trying the same thing over and over and over until,
until
obviously
it clicks.
you're improving as you go along, but also, there's a bit of RNG. Sometimes you get really lucky. Sometimes there's a weird bug or glitch that you've never encountered before, until the point where enough things just go right and it all comes together.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, yeah, the no hit grind is just a grind, but actually trying different stuff is where you really learn and grow as a runner, as a player, whatever. Oh, this fight is abysmal. First of all, tree balls on the master run. I am so upset at how much time I invested practicing this
Oh
boss
god,
because
I
I
think I
hate this
understand
boss.
what is called pain already.
Yeah. And I'm also not gonna lie, I was not taking this attempt seriously at this point, so I just kind of YOLO some stuff in phase one, but it worked out. So
Oh
I'm just giving a
god.
heads up to anybody watching this. Um, but yeah, like trying different stuff, and especially like even if it's a running section that you've done a million times and you got your way that you like it, it's a good thing to try something different because it's very possible that there's something you simply never understood because when you approach it only one way, you only see things one way, So you've got to try different stuff. You've got to see how things play out in a different way, and you just get a better understanding. And that can also help you, like, long term. When you come back to this area later, you're like, oh, you know what? I remember when I was doing this and I tried this thing out, there was this weird thing that happened. And you just have a better understanding of the game instead of just going through and doing the same thing over and over. But it's hard to break that because, once you get into it, we like to be comfortable with things. It's tough to break out of your comfort zone and try something new. It is, but it is very much worth it.
Yeah, that's true. I feel that because I'm thinking that it's different to know how to mimic something, a route or a guide, and it's
Hmm.
different to understanding the game. I think
Absolutely.
I was talking with Miko when he was in my chat some day ago, and I asked him, "Hey Miko, what's your opinion about the hidden body ban and unban?" You know, and I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I don't." I think he said something. I'm not quoting like what he exactly said, but he was something like, "Oh, I don't mind about hidden body because it's something of the game, but I feel that people should also learn how the enemy works and
Yeah.
how they
Yeah.
interact.
Absolutely.
They how in like
Hmm.
just no spamming without knowing where you should use it and that the way, but mostly how okay you can definitely just you just need to use 2 time hidden body here. Okay, know that this enemy shoot this and that, that way.
Yeah. It's and that's one reason why I really enjoyed doing challenges in the randomizer because when you fight a boss in a different arena or when you encounter a late game enemy that's massive and blocking a very narrow
Oh
passage,
god,
you
yeah.
have to come up with ideas of, how can I deal with this? And you just get better at playing the game by figuring things out. So, yeah, it's one reason why I really enjoyed the randomizers because it forces you to actually play the game instead of just running by everything. Okay, normally right here in the tree balls fight, this should be a bone out. When he does that sap AoE
Oh
around him,
god.
it's not safe to stay in the fight. And I just kind of YOLO it. I
Y-
throw a fire orb. It misses twice. Like, I have no reason to be in this fight. The enemies are respawning and dropping into the arena. Like, there's no reason why I should have continued doing this. But I was just like, let's just see if I can survive. And I look around and make sure, okay, no enemies are, getting near me. We'll just keep on going. So
God damn.
I broke two of the sacks, and this is not good because ideally you would break two sacks and at least do some damage on a third one, but I had no extra damage on a third one there, so I knew that I had to survive in this phase two for a while, and it's scary. Also, if anybody didn't know, alluring skulls work on great wood.
What?
Yeah, they actually do. And it's hilarious because, like, when are you ever going to learn that ever until it's a run like this where you actually have to fight the boss? And even this is the thing, SL1, no upgrades on New Game. This is a scripted fight. But all of the sudden on New Game Plus 7, it is one of the most annoying fights ever. It is horrible. And he's just got so many nasty attacks. But yeah, it turns out that alluring skulls actually work on him.
This is just like learning that skulls work on deacons.
Yeah, right. Like, and they can be very useful, but this is also just such an awkward boss fight. Like, the guy is so large. His arena is a decent size, but he just has some really nasty attacks. The way that he moves, the way that he turns and everything, he is so bizarre. And
Yeah.
his hitboxes are terrible. Like, if you're trying to hit this guy with a melee weapon,
I don't
even
even
with
want.
pyromancy, it's tough. It's a really rough fight.
I don't even want to think about doing this with me, to be honest. It's probably pain. Oh God.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, but like I spent a ton of time and energy learning how to do pyromancies well for this boss, and actually did really well here in phase 2. All things considered, once you know how to survive, it's actually an okay fight for the most part. Um, it's much it's it's weird, but like phase 1 is so much more stressful because you have to clear out all of the enemies, and it's very, very precise at the beginning of phase 1. And if it doesn't go right, you should bone out of the fight. Yeah, I'm not happy with my performance there. And phase 2 is like, as long as you know how to survive in the fight, you can usually get away with it. But there's a lot of like improv that has to happen. You can't just it's not really scripted. You have to learn how to fight him well. And dude, nobody should have to learn how to fight tree balls. Like, he's a terrible boss.
Yeah, I can see. I think that more than a lot of people hate him. That for sure.
For good reason. For
Good
very,
reason.
very,
Yeah,
very
makes
good
makes
reason.
sense. Now it's
Also,
more hilarious than it's kind of old bosses. This was the final boss he killed.
I gotta look at what that was. What I remember what this is, but I'm forgetting. I know it, but what happened?
Wait, maybe you
What was
forgot
it?
something?
You were saying Escarl. Well,
Oh.
sorry. What were you saying about Escarl's?
No, that is Carl on the last boss he killed on the old bosses run. It was the
Yeah.
Tribo, and it was super fun.
Oh, okay. No, I might have been thinking of something else.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that fight is very scary if you actually need to fight him. He is a terrifying boss.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I know there was at least one question earlier. Did we get through any other questions, or was there more?
Oh yeah, there was another question, but mostly it was the on the no bonfire run. Why you use the storm roller against Cinder?
Oh, so like of the weapons that are you could use different weapons, and honestly, if I were thinking about it, I might. Well, let me think about this for a second.
Sure.
So basically, I use a storm ruler because, like back in the day when Soul Level 1, no upgrades, when that run was getting really popular, one of the very popular ways to fight Cinder is with a greatsword of some kind, and the storm ruler is actually pretty good on him. Even though, the storm ruler is mostly meant for Yorm, it actually does pretty respectable damage on its own, even at Soul Level 1. So we were as the assassin class, and we had, I think, like 1 or 2 extra levels. So at low levels, it's still pretty good. It does pretty solid damage, and the greatsword moveset is pretty nice, actually. But if I were thinking about it, I might have actually, like, this is something that I only learned after that run, but actually the Reinforced Club would be an excellent choice for him. It's a free pickup along the way where you're going, oh god, this fight is horrible.
Oh god.
The Deacons, well, I mean, it went fine on this, but for anybody who's not familiar, I can explain what's going on here because it might be kind of new and interesting for people. But we are actually going to cheese the boss with Poison Mist. And it's very cool how it works, just because you might not know about it, or anybody watching or whatever. So what you do is you run around to the front of the arena, and actually the Archdeacon that you fight in phase 2 is sitting in the center of this tomb. And if you cast Poison Mist, it will actually reach him, and you poison him. And that's what's happening to his health bar right now.
Wow.
So we have to do this. We have to do this like 3 or 4 times to bring his health down low enough to go into phase 2. But this is how you deal with phase 1, because otherwise, if you're using like the broadsword with fire bundles, it's going to take like 8 or 10 hits to kill a single small deacon. It's miserable to do it on New Game Plus 7.
Yeah, I can imagine.
This is way more manageable. And then in phase 2, we use the Bandit's Knife with Bleed, we use Skulls, and that's how we kill the boss. So, but that's what's going on. It's the Poison Mist cheese, and it works very, very well. So, And what also just occurred to me was you mentioned Miko a moment ago. Miko recently did no skulls, all bosses, which is a really cool run. And what he did early on was because he can't level up by spending souls, he leveled up by interacting with Yol of Londor. You get one
Okay.
free level from him. So he put it into intelligence, which gave him enough intelligence to use the storyteller staff, and he farmed it early and he used it on this boss fight in the same way, and it's a really cool idea.
Wow.
So like that's one thing that's really neat about unique runs that have like special restrictions. You're never going to see anybody do something like that, and nobody would have figured out like, that's a really good option until you're trying to do a run that sort of demands it. So that's
Yeah.
the fun thing about trying different things is that's where you come up with new ideas, new strats and all that kind of stuff, not from doing the same thing over and over. And there's nothing wrong with that because that is the no-hit grind, but it's so much more fun and rewarding to try new things like this, and it's really really cool.
Yeah, that's for
but
sure.
um but yeah, but basically, yeah, that's why we use the storm ruler on Cinder. Was it does good damage. The great sword moveset is pretty solid, and it's you get it for free by fighting Yorm. But there are other choices that you could use against Cinder, but that's just what I chose pretty much.
I
I
can.
just thought it would be a fun fight.
Yeah, I don't even remember how much damage this. Like, can you even upgrade the Storm Ruler? I don't remember.
You can upgrade it with Titanite scales. So you can upgrade it. It's kind of like a boss weapon. If you were to pick like
Okay.
the weapons that you get from Soul Transposition or whatever,
Yes,
you
yes.
upgrade them with Titanite scales. So
Oh.
it does upgrade it, and it does like pretty okay. The damage gets quite good still. It's pretty respectable. But that used to be sort of the meta on SL1 no upgrades for Cinder
Hmm.
was to use a storm. Oh, the other reason is because it does good stagger damage, so
Oh,
you
makes
can
sense.
poise break him, and that's really really critical if you're gonna fight magic phase. If he puts up the soul mass, you want to
Oh.
cancel it by getting a stagger on him. So having something with good poise damage is quite good there. And that's another reason why the reinforced club would be another good option, is because it also does pretty good poise damage and pretty low requirements. And it does bleed. It's a fun weapon.
Yeah, actually,
So
Sphere really strong. Now that
yeah.
you think about it.
Yeah, it's quite good. Um so let me think for a moment. So if we I do have two more runs in mind that I wanted to mention that are like particularly noteworthy. Unless there were any other like questions or anything to
No,
follow
no,
up
no.
on.
I don't think that there are more questions.
Cool.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
So
no.
the other two runs that come to mind that I particularly like that I've done, one of them I did over the summer. It was Soul Level 1 Weapon Relay, all bosses, no
Oh, I
hit. So a
remember
different,
that one.
yeah, a different weapon on every boss fight. And if anybody remembers, Team Hitless did their fundraising event over the summer, and I actually did that any percent, and I actually got it with 0 hits during that event, which was really cool.
Oh, so
But
cool.
as preparation for that event, I actually did route and ran all bosses SL1 weapon relay. So it's a really cool idea because you think, Soul Level 1, how could you possibly find 25 decent weapons, upgrade them to a respectable level, and use them effectively on those bosses? But it's actually very doable. And I really like that run for a few reasons. One, no one had ever done it before. So it was really fun to figure out, you know, what weapons are best on which boss and actually route it all around that. And then two, if anybody else wanted to do that run, they could do it entirely differently. Choose completely different weapons, whatever makes sense for them, and it would still be a cool run. And I just really like that. I think it's a really fun run. And I got to use some weapons that are like very unexpected. Like in DLC 1, we kill Wilhelm in order to get the contraption key. And
Yep.
a lot of times you'll see people do either the branch cheese where he falls off, or he gets stuck or falls off a cliff, or you can like shield bash him off the cliff. Well, he drops the Onyx Blade, which you can use at Soul Level 1, but you need 3 rings just to be able to wield it two-handed.
Oh
You
God.
need you need the Priestess Ring for the extra faith, you need the Scholar Ring for the extra intelligence, and you need one of the Dexterity rings, and then you can two-hand the ring. And then you use like Lloyd's or RTSR. But it's really cool because that weapon uses Twinkling Titanite, and since I didn't have any other Twinkling Titanite weapons, I could just pick up Twinkling Titanite on my run. I didn't have to purchase them. Um, So I use an Onyx Blade +5 on Nameless King, and that thing destroys him. It does dark damage. It's a great sword with um, really good base damage. And the moveset has those R2s that are a pierce attack. They do the pokes, and that's really, really strong against the Drake in phase one. So it's a really good weapon. And somehow you can actually use it on SL1. And it also has the self buff when you
Oh,
when you two hand the weapon, or even if you one hand it, when you hit L2, it buffs itself with dark damage, which is really cool. I love weapons that do that.
oh, that's so
So
cool.
it was great because I've never seen anyone use that weapon, and it turns out it's actually really fun. And so it was really cool to like find weapons like that. Um, and it's also it's such a complicated run because you go through and you have this idea, all right, 25 bosses, 25 different weapons, let's try and come up with something. So then you get whatever your initial roster of weapons is going to be. But then anytime that you make a change, like, oh yeah, you know what, let's switch up the weapon that I'm using on Aldrich, it has this whole cascade effect where like half a
Oh.
dozen other things in the run have to change to accommodate that. Because if I switch up this weapon, then I have to switch up this other one and this other one and this other one, and it keeps on going until you finally figure it out. But then you have to go back and make sure that it doesn't change your routing at all. It's like so complicated to make that run work. But it was really cool in the end. So it was very, very fun. And that's, like I was saying, that's another run where there's a lot of testing, there's a lot of experimenting, and that's what I really enjoy about runs, is just figuring out like what weapon works well against this boss and figuring out how to route it properly. um and there's also one thing about that run that I really like. So if you ever watch an SL1 all boss no hit run, people fight Half-Light in like one of two different ways. There's, you can poison cheese him, you get behind a pillar and you use storyteller staff, or you use dung pies, whatever makes sense, and that's totally fine. I've used that in a couple of runs, and I can never blame anyone for choosing to do that. Like, screw Half-Light, he's terrible. But there's another strat at SL1 where you use a fire dagger +10 and you bait out parries from him. And if you parry
Okay.
him 3 times and riposte him, you do enough damage to kill him. And as long as you do it fast enough, the second Painting Guardian will not be a problem. The Painting Guardian will not have time to heal Half-Light. You'll kill Half-Light before it's a problem. So the thing with that is that the fire dagger actually does too much damage. Because you want to kill Half-Light in 3 ripostes. So you need to do at least 1/3 of his health every single time with a riposte. That's sort of the idea. But the problem is that once you've done 35% of his health, then the second Painting Guardian will spawn. So you have this very narrow margin where, like, you could do more than a third of his health, but less than 35%. And the dagger isn't good for that. So what you would do is you would find a setup where you would do less damage on the first riposte so that you don't accidentally spawn the Painting Guardian. And
Oh
then you would
God.
do more damage on the next 2 riposte. Typically what that is like you have the Flynn's ring, more damage at lower equip load. So you would just do something like that, and you would equip armor for the first riposte so that you're doing less damage, and
Oh,
then you would
okay.
unequip the armor for the next 2, or something like that. It's nothing really too bad, but it usually requires a little bit of inventory management in the middle of a fight,
Oh
which
God.
not everybody likes. But when we were experimenting with it, we found out that the Mail Breaker +10 with a fire infusion actually hits that sweet spot when you have Red Tearstone and the other good rings. You can just straight up kill him in 3 ripostes. No funny inventory management or anything like that. So, like, there's no way that anybody would have found that if there wasn't a run that required that, to try and do that. So we found this perfect setup where I can just parry him, riposte him 3 times, no funny business, and it was perfect. But it's also really terrifying to do that at the end of a run. So it's tough. But it was really cool to find just like minor optimizations like that. Oh, I may have had a really long break here at some point. So yeah, feel free to skip ahead
Yeah.
whenever it makes sense.
Ah, yes. Okay. Okay, you were just
And
playing?
so yeah, the weapon relay is a really cool run, and it's also really cool because you have to use so many different weapon types. You switch up between daggers, straight swords, clubs, great swords, axes, hammers, maces, like all these different weapon types. So you need to know, just not just how to fight the bosses, but how to fight them well with that particular weapon. And that's easier said than done. So there's a lot of like, how well do you really know the boss fight? Like, I might be able to do two punishes with the twin blades, but with this other type of weapon, like a hammer, I really only have time for like one punish. Or maybe with the dagger, I have enough time for 3 or 4 punishes. So you have to find all those little details and figure out how to fight that boss with that type of weapon. And it takes a lot of practice to do that. So, but yeah, that's another run that I really, really like just because there's so much going on in it, and you get to see so much variety. And for once, it's an SL1 run where you put your souls to good use because upgrades are expensive. They're really expensive,
Yep, they
and
are.
you run out of souls pretty fast. So a lot of times you're going into these boss fights with like suboptimal upgrades. You might normally go to DSA with like a +9 weapon, and on my run I think I was only at like +7, which is not like a massive difference, but you're clearly missing out on a bit of damage on like every boss fight. It's wild.
Yeah, makes it.
So
Okay, I have a question actually. For this area, you know that lately, well, I'm working on the any percent. That's the run I'm
yeah.
working. And here I'm having a problem because I don't truly know where to land after using the spook.
Oh,
So
so pause it here in a second and go slowly right here. Pause it. Okay.
okay,
So just try and like go forward like 1 second, unpause it and then pause it again.
okay,
Right here. Okay. So you see the platform below me, like right where I'm landing right now?
yeah,
That's fine. If
okay,
you land, you see to the left where there's the broken part of the platform, that's
yes,
slightly higher up. And if you
okay.
and if you land on that part of the platform, then when you drop, you'll be too high up and you'll die from fall damage. Right
Oh,
here where I'm at is safe, but if you're slightly to the left, you will die. That
oh,
is what's unsafe.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes
So,
sense. Okay, good. I'm going
yeah.
to because I was always landing on the left side, but I was
Mhm.
like, wait, I have noted maybe this is actually a fall damage, and I tested it the other day, and yeah, that killed me. You know?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty close to a lethal height, right there. But if you land on that center area where I'm at there, that's
Yeah, is
fine.
that like
But if
that
you're,
brick? I'm going to be
yep,
using that brick as a
yeah,
visual clue from now onward, probably. And also, I saw that you throw like
a skull.
a skull. I'm probably also going to do that.
Yeah, it works on the fireball there. I think I don't know who originally found it. I think Ain Run was the one who shared it with the community the most, so I think he gets credit for it. But yeah, it's a really cool thing. Like somehow the skull works from that far away, and it works really well on that fireball. So, and you know what? This is so weird. Like one moment with the master run here, I'm kind of surprised that the Storm Roller works the exact same on New Game +7 as it does on New Game. It still only takes 5 hits to kill him. And I'm
Okay.
kind of surprised at that. Like, I would almost think that, on higher New Game, the Storm Roller would do less damage each time you do it here. Like, maybe it would take, on New Game +7, maybe it takes 7 or 8 times to kill him just because, you have to be in the fight a little bit longer, like all the other fights at this difficulty scaling. But kind of surprising. I don't know if the Serpent Hunter works like that in Elden Ring,
I
where
have
on
no
higher new
idea,
game
to be
scale,
honest.
yeah, I'm not really sure, but like, it is kind of odd that it takes 5 hits on new game and it takes 5 hits on new game +7. Like that's a little strange to me, but it doesn't really matter. It was just a comment I wanted to make. That's it.
I'm guessing. Well, it's interesting because I'm guessing it's probably because Jorm is supposed to be a scripted fight, in a
I
way.
guess
So they probably didn't
maybe.
they didn't think that much,
Oh, you know
you
what
know.
else I just realized? Because you can do this boss fight as part of a quest line,
Okay.
and part of the quest line is keeping Sigurd
Oh yeah,
alive.
true.
Yeah, so if,
And
if
he
it
also
takes
used,
more, if it
yeah.
takes so much longer, then maybe he has a higher chance of dying, and they didn't want that. That actually would make
Yeah,
sense.
makes sense. Makes it like probably
Yeah,
it's just the idea of people will not use another weapon against him.
yeah.
That's
But that's
the
one that's one thing that's so good about Yorm is you can fight him with other weapons,
yeah.
and it works very well. I really like that. It's a bummer that they didn't do the same thing with Rykard because Rykard is miserable to fight with
No,
anything
yeah.
other than the
Like
Storm or
any
the
big
Serpent
boss.
Hunter.
Any big
Yeah.
boss.
And like even that was one thing on sorcery. I spent so much time trying to script Rykard, and I have phase 1 scripted, and if things go well, the beginning of phase 2, I will get him below 50% health quickly, but then after that you just have to fight him no matter what. It's such a bummer that we couldn't, like, even with all of the wild buffs that I had on that run, we still could not fully script Rykard. I was kind of bummed about that, but you know what? It just is what it is. Whatever.
Yeah, it is what it is. Just gotta learn.
Yeah. So,
But
but yeah, the weapon relay run is another one of my favorites, just because like no one had ever done that before, and it's a really fun idea. Different weapon for every boss fight, and like just one point of clarification: I did allow anything in the running sections just for convenience, because like there are some running sections where I would not like, there's the stat boosting rings in Dark Souls 3. And sometimes like I need to get that stat boosting ring. Like when I'm going through Grand Archives, they have the Hunter's ring up there. And I need that ring in order to use the weapon that I want to use on the Twin Princes. So if I were to run through that running section with a weapon that I cannot wield, that would be miserable.
oh god,
So
yeah.
I allow anything in the running sections just for convenience. But then when it comes to the boss fights, yeah, one weapon per boss fight. And I didn't use any throwables or consumables on that fight or anything like that, or to like do damage to the boss. Like it was purely, I only used that weapon during that boss fight, which is just kind of fun. So, but that's another run that I really did enjoy quite a lot.
Is it a really fun run for sure?
Yeah, and it's also surprising, like by the end of that run you're getting so many souls. I think like the last 5 weapons we used, maybe with one exception, I think I ended up upgrading like 5 weapons to plus 10, which is crazy because you have to find so many titanite slabs. And that was one of the first runs where I actually used hidden body, and hidden body was great for like, if you're in Archdragon Peak and you want to get the ashes so that you can buy titanite chunks, good luck. I mean, there are good strats, but it's so much easier when you have hidden body. So it made stuff like that very, very simple, and it helped make that run just much more viable. So even though hidden body is quirky at times, it can be very, very good. I
No,
like
that's
it.
that's for sure. It's even at some areas. I think that hidden body was intended to be used there. You know.
Maybe like Irithyll. It'd
Oh
be great
yeah.
to just use hidden body and just go through Irithyll without that horrible, horrible place happening. Or like these jailers or something like that. That's another good place where maybe hidden body would be really, really useful. So yeah, who knows? And it is kind of odd. Like I can understand the mindset that, challenge runners, they're trying to set a certain standard and they think that hidden body is simply overpowered. So like I understand the idea of banning it, but I think it was probably a good idea to unban it eventually. And I'm kind of glad that it happened because like some of these running sections are just awful, but it's
Totally.
also allowed some things
New
that otherwise would
strats.
be, yeah, it would be extremely difficult without hidden bodies. So it's fun to see people again trying something different. You have an option to use and make it work in whatever way works for you.
Yeah,
So
my idea is always that if the is a mechanic from the game, for example, hidden body, the blue elixir from Bloodborne,
yep.
the candies from Sekiro.
Sekiro.
I mean, also they are hidden body on Dark Souls 1 and 2. They are
Yeah, true.
they are mechanics from the game. I don't think those should be banned. Any type of mechanic from the game, because
Yeah, of course. Like I think yeah, like why it's part of the game. It's intended by the developers for the players to
to be
use.
used exactly.
Why would people arbitrarily say no, that's not allowed? It is weird, right? But like I do understand, from a challenge run community, you are trying to set a certain standard. It's just a really awkward situation. You just have to judge it. Like it was also very different back in the day compared to how it is now. So, the community was nowhere near as large,
Oh,
and
it's
it
just
was
rude, yeah.
very, yeah, the runners, the people that were running the games, were sort of, gravitate to a certain mindset where, they're maybe a bit more hardcore about the challenge than some others are and stuff like that. So it's just totally different. But yeah, basically Yeah, I think it was a good thing in the end.
At the
And then
end,
yeah,
those
there is.
discussions are good because it's what I mean. I always think that discussion should happen because it's not good if everyone have the same mindset or it's like a echo chamber, you know. These type are supposed to be discussed and talk with people, you know, and that's why pools and all of that happens, you know. I think it's all right to have this discussion from time to time.
Yeah, for sure. So and yeah, that's I haven't used hidden body in many runs, but it is really really useful at times. So I will I think well actually I'll mention it here. I didn't use hidden body on the master run. When I did SL1 no upgrades about whatever that was, maybe a year and a half ago at this point, um hidden body had only recently been unbanned, and like there was nothing wrong with it, but I was just sort of hesitant to start using it because when I did use it a bit, I had trouble with making it work in certain areas. Certain enemies behave very strangely when you have hidden body on. So ultimately, I just ended up not using it, even though it's perfectly allowed and everything like that. But on this run, I ended up not using it because I don't know. It was just kind of how I had done these low damage runs. The spook strats were perfectly fine, and there was nothing that I absolutely needed hidden body for. So I just went without it on this run just because. But there's nothing wrong with it by any means. So it's really good and really useful. I've used it on runs since then, and yeah, I'm glad to see that people are getting into it, getting into DS3, and actually hidden body is helping them do that. It's a good thing in the end. It really is.
I mean, at
Just
the end, like you
very good.
say, we just need to do whatever we feel better, you know?
Yep,
Like
absolutely.
like if hidden body was banned, I would probably just learn how to do the newer strat. But then if because you know I'm new to the DS3 hitless to be honest, so I don't know how was back in the day without hidden body. But probably if I was there, probably okay, just let them use. I don't. I already know how to use do it with a hidden body. I will use it if I want. I will not if I don't want. That's the point, you know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right. So for anybody watching this master run bit right here,
Oh god.
Ponif is such a silly strat. And like I wish there was something better, but uh literally we just throw poop at the guy for like a minute and a half until he finally gets toxic. And there's so much status going on. Like you get a toxic proc, and then it turns out that you can get toxic and poison at the same time. So
What?
we start with toxic, we go for poison, then we switch over to bleed. We have to unequip our armor in the middle of the fight so that we're light rolling. We do a whole bunch of parries, riposts, precise punishes after that, and you're just trying to bring his health down low enough so that when he gets into phase 2 and spawns a clone, the poison and the toxic will keep on chipping away at his health and eventually kill him, and hopefully we don't have to deal with the clone at all. That is the entire idea of this strat. But we literally have to parry and riposte him like 15 times or parry him like 15 times and throw a bunch of dung pies at him. It's ludicrous.
Oh god. I
So
just love how you exactly in that moment you paused the game like you were in the
I think I was like checking my rings or something to make sure that I was all accurate or something like that.
yeah, and it was like you
Yeah.
were actually explaining the strat in game.
Maybe something like that. Like when I was doing this run, I was watching people's streams and chatting. So
Oh
like I was
yeah.
probably alt tab to
Look
BS
at
a little
that,
bit in some
dude.
chat.
So
So
amazing.
and then we have to cure the toxic buildup on ourselves in the middle there, so that we did that for a moment so that we don't get a toxic proc on ourselves. So it's like
My god.
there's so many steps involved in this strat. It's very silly. So now we got the toxic proc, we go to poison, we're gonna do some punishes. I'm taking off my armor,
Oh
and
god.
then we get some extra punishes in here. More parries and riposts and punishes.
This is
Trying to
crazy.
remember. I think I have to do one more parry and then I switch over to bleed. Yeah, I think that's it. And yeah, it is. Okay, cool. And then there's another cool trick here, which there's different ways of doing it, but once he kneels down and goes into phase transition, there's a trick you can do with throwing a consumable at a precise moment, and it will bait him. It baits out an input read from him. So right now, instead of summoning the clone, he lunged at me and did another attack that I could parry and riposte. but it doesn't work all the time. There's a 1 in 6 chance that it will fail for no good reason, even if you do everything right. So it's like 80% reliable, and I just go for it because I have no better option. It's so rough. This fight is terrible, and I wish there was something better, but that's about the best we've got. And now here, his health is low. We just wait for the poison to deal damage to him, and then we can finally move on. So this is one of the more annoying fights on this run, and it takes a lot of practice to get comfortable with this kind of strat. So
Oh God, I
it's
can
tough.
imagine. Which
Yeah.
so we don't what I don't think we have enough time. I mean we have been just watching the master run, which I'm loving 2 hours already. So
Yeah, if there's other stuff to watch, that's fine too.
no,
So
sure.
we
So
can move around whenever.
sure. Which other boss or area do you think we could talk about the master run that you remember that could be interesting
Oh.
to see?
Um I always like the DSA fight in this run.
The DS.
Um
Oh, actually, I was thinking about that because DSA
oh
is
yeah.
something on any percent and SL1. Okay,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that
even
that.
the difference between leveled and SL1, like, on leveled, when you have the twin blades upgraded to +9, you set up RTSR. There is a strat where you can basically destroy him during phase transition, and you don't have to deal with phase 2 at all. And even just at SL1, that already is not possible. So you have to learn the fight at SL1. But in a run like this, you have to survive phase 2. I may
Oh,
have misspoke a moment ago about phase 1, phase 2, but you have to survive phase 2. Like, the butterflies will throw horrible combinations at you with the armor doing attacks at you as well, and it's just really tough to actually survive um, in this run. So unless I have extra setup, I should be going to the boss right here. I don't think there's anything special other than grabbing RTSR. Um, but this is one of the places where pyromancy is really good. Great combustion. Like, I remember testing it on New Game. When you're using the broadsword with bundles, you're probably doing like 115 damage per R1. Great combustion with, I think with RTSR, is doing 199 damage. So almost double the damage with
oh God.
pyro compared to melee. So this is just objectively the best way to fight this guy in terms of damage and DPS. But it's also fun because if you get comfortable with Estus cancels, this is a fun fight to show off. So, and it's really, really satisfying to do all these strafes and bait out these shield slams and stuff like that. Although I think on this fight I actually didn't do a great job of it, but um learning how to survive phase 2 and actually deal with the butterflies and all their nonsense, deal with the nonsense in the arena, it's tough. It really is. And but
I
it's one
just
of the
think
most
that
satisfying fights.
surviving for so long DSA is crazy. The shield
Yeah.
bash, the strafes, dude, they're actually crazy.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite fights. Like, fighting the armor itself is one of my favorite fights in the game. I know that he can put up his shield like this and turtle a whole lot, but other than that, it's very satisfying to fight him and do all these cool strafes and bait out all these attacks and stuff. If it weren't for the butterflies, this would probably be my favorite fight in the game, in all
Yeah,
seriousness.
that for sure. Also, did you use Artisar or Lloyd's in this one? Because you say something about Artisar, but you're using Lloyd's on this one.
Yeah. So there's an odd quirk with those rings. They increase your damage in different ways. One of them is increasing your base damage, and one of them is increasing your overall damage, or
Okay.
something like that. So I'm trying to remember how it works. I think Lloyd's increases your overall damage, and RTSR increases your base damage. So there are some cases where, especially on New Game Plus 7, Lloyd's will actually do more damage than RTSR because they boost the damage in two different ways. So the math works out differently
Oh,
sometimes.
makes
It's really,
sense.
really bizarre. But yeah, most times, like, the damage is negligible here between Lloyd's and RTSR. I remember on New Game I tested this, and it was a difference of one cast of Great Combustion between Lloyd's and RTSR. It makes hardly any difference. So on New Game Plus 7, it is probably pretty negligible too. And I just didn't bother testing everything. I just went with Lloyd's because it's enough damage. It's more about surviving the fight for long enough to kill the boss. Having a tiny little bit of extra damage here and there just won't really change much. But later on, when we're fighting like demon princes or maybe Madir. It's worth it to have RTSR because when you're using a melee weapon, the scaling tends to work much better for RTSR. So, like the Black Knight sword and Gale's Great Sword, it makes sense to use RTSR when you're using those weapons. It's a pretty significant boost in damage, but otherwise, for almost the entire run, Lloyd's is plenty. So that's just all it comes down to there.
Okay, okay. I didn't
It's
know it were different ways, actually. That's interesting.
yeah, it's very weird, and I'm not sure how it works in Elden Ring. I assume they would have changed it. You know, there's a
Clueless.
Ritual Sword Talisman and Red Feather Branch Sword. So I would hope that they sort of fix that, but I don't know exactly. Either way, that's how I like to do runs in Elden Ring as well. I'd rather have full HP and not have to set up RTSR all the time. It's also just that's really the reason. I just don't like setting up RTSR if I don't have to.
Yeah, makes sense, to be honest. Sometimes setting Artisar is kind of boring.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so there is one more run I want to mention real quick. We already mentioned
Okay.
it a little bit. The last run that really comes to mind for me was the SL1 Mimic Head All Boss run, and that was like my most not my most recent run, but I got it right before getting the Master run, and it was cool because the entire also if you want another fight that would be fun to watch, Cinder is always a good fight,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
Phase Two.
I'm curious
Um,
about it.
Actually, phase one is interesting because everybody who's done the master run has done a different setup on Cinder, at least for phase. Well, yeah, actually, everybody's done something a little different. Um, so Gino fought with Black Knight Sword in phase one and did Black Flame in phase two, which was really cool. CBD did Bandit's Knife for the entire fight, but he used it two handed in phase one, and I don't remember about phase two. I'll use the Bandit's Knife in phase two. You'll see. Oh yeah, I actually take time to clear out the arena. The only time I've ever done this
Oh,
because
God.
you're in the arena for so long. It's worth it to clear out all of these tree stumps.
Makes sense.
But what I do in phase one is I use the reinforced club, um, because like I was saying earlier, the stagger damage is so good. It has bleed on it, and the weapon requirements are really low. So, it doesn't consume tons of stamina. I'm not as comfortable with like the great sword fight on this guy, like the way that Gino was fighting him. So I just went with whatever felt good for me. And it was odd that like of all things, the reinforced club ended up being my favorite choice. So it was very odd, but it works out very well here. Um, you can like skip ahead if you want to get into the actual fight. The other thing that I do here is because I'm using two different bleed weapons and because we're in the fight for so long, I actually yeah, right here. I dropped 5 Carthus Rouge on the ground and stashed them in the arena. And then when you go back to rest of the bonfire, it refills the 5 that were in your inventory. But the 5
Okay.
that are on the ground are still there. They're stashed on the ground. They stay there as long as the area doesn't like as long as you don't hit a load screen. So I stashed 10 Carthus Rouge in the arena so that I would have enough for both phase 1 and phase 2 because you can only hold 5 at a time.
Oh,
But all of a
God.
sudden, now that I've stashed 10 on the ground, I'm going to have 15 available for the whole fight. And it's a little cheesy, but it's a nice help to have as much bleed as you want on this fight. So it was worth it. But it's
Yeah,
really
makes
goofy.
so interesting.
Yeah, so that was why I did this fight. But yeah, phase one worked well because I'm getting staggers and bleed procs. And then phase two with the bandit's knife is especially fun. We will get there in a moment. So yeah, the other run that I did was SL1 Mimic had all bosses. And that run was really fun because anybody who knows, like maybe some people know this, but back a few months ago, if you guys know Elias, Ella, the streamer, he started up a deathless challenge of SL1 Mimic Head all bosses in this game. And a lot of people started doing it too because it's a really cool challenge. But, it was deathless. That was the whole idea. And eventually I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and try it. Like I'm sure I can do decent at it. And we got to run all the way to Yorm. Like I didn't really route it. We just went for it and tried it. And it's tough to figure out all the healing stuff, but once you've got it, it's pretty cool. And after I died to Yorm, then we went through and just went ahead and like routed the rest of the run to see what it would be like. And it turns out that like it's actually a really fun run, and it's surprising just how much there is to learn about healing mechanics in Dark Souls 3. Like I was really surprised about that. So it was a very fun run where again I was learning something kind of unexpected, but it, and I also mentioned it earlier, it's a real challenge on like how well you can focus, because you have to manage your healing, you have to manage so many items, your Estus, all that kind of stuff in the middle of fights especially. So it's a really tough run, but it was very satisfying. And it was also cool because I mentioned it earlier about the SO1 weapon relay, how we fight Half-Light. You use like a dagger that has a fire infusion and +10. And I ended up doing basically the same thing on the Mimic Head run, but you're missing out on the damage because there's no point in picking up Lloyd's or RTSR because it's not reliable to maintain your health at any point in that run. Like you're never going to maintain it at full, and maintaining it at RTSR is dangerous. So there's no good reason to do that. So there's no point in picking up RTSR or Lloyd's. So I was missing out on damage.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
to make out for the missing damage on Half-Light, I did the first parry with nothing special. And then I got the Pyromancy Power Within, and I cast that before the second riposte.
Oh
And that does
god.
it does extra damage, but it also does extra health drain. So not only is the Mimic Head draining my health, I also had Power Within draining my health. So I'm especially on a time limit in that fight. And the Mimic Head is like obstructing your view in terms of the camera. It's really hard to see what's going on sometimes. So I lost 3 runs in 4 days to Half-Light doing that run, and it was so upsetting.
I
was
can
so
imagine. I can imagine.
And the
Also,
first
I
time
have
that
I have a sorry I interrupt you,
No,
but I have a
go for it.
because it related to the Cinder fight. So
Oh yeah.
there's people that depend of the faces, they either hate or love Cinder, right? So
Oh yeah, yeah.
you are the I heard that you either love a spear face or hate it. Do you like it or do you hate it?
I'm a fan of Spear Phase because there are a surprising number of punishes, but it can be very tough because some of those attacks come out incredibly fast. And I've
There-
lost runs to them multiple times.
There
But
is one
like,
attack in specific that it makes me say I'm not punishing this phase. I think I only punish one attack and it's this big spin, and that's because I have reaction time to dodge that attack. That is the super fast backhand. That
yes,
attack.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've lost a run to that attack, and
Th-
it like I think there are certain attacks in these games where you just need to be ready for it. Like on Osiris, you need to expect the insta charge. On Millennia, you need to expect Waterfowl. On this guy in Spearface, you need to expect that backhand where he just quickly swipes it like down at the ground because it happens so damn fast. And
Yeah, if you don't
also-
insta roll it, like not even insta roll it, if you don't roll it 1 second before he does it, you're screwed.
yeah, you've got to be ready for it at all times. And it just turns out like this can be a fun phase to fight him. And for anybody who's like,
that
right
like,
there,
he's so
Yep.
fast. And also
like,
for some reason, the pokes for some reason I cannot dodge them. It's so hard for me
yes.
to dodge them.
So one thing with Cinder, so first things first, like when I got into no hit runs, I cannot recommend enough Geo's boss guide.
Oh yeah, that's the one I'm using for sure.
And he he has a fantastic guide on Cinder. He goes into his moveset, very detailed. But I know at one point he specifically talks about the way that people like to fight him, the way that people like to dodge him. And a lot of times what you'll see people doing is sort of rolling through his attacks, like that right there. I rolled forward and to the right. But people will do that on like almost every attack that Cinder does. And I don't really like that, but it's hard to explain and it's hard to adjust. Like it makes sense sometimes, but sometimes it makes more sense, not in this phase maybe, but in like sword phase and in curve sword phase. A lot of times it makes sense to roll backwards from him on like the first part of a combo and then maybe roll into him on the second part of the combo, because when you're close enough, you're baiting out the third part of the combo. And that's when you know it's safe to punish, is when he's completed a combo. You know that he's not going to follow
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
Yeah. So whenever you can, sometimes it makes more sense to roll backwards and outspace stuff instead of rolling through it into the right, especially on the regular sword phase. So it can be tough to change, but once you get used to it, you can get much more aggressive with the boss. And, that's where it gets really fun.
Yeah, what I did the other day, I was say, okay, I'm not going to probably run today that much. I would like to do some practice. I decide to try getting a kill on Cinder with broken twin blades.
Oh, nice. I
I
like that a
couldn't.
lot because, yeah, you know what? That's something that actually is worth mentioning. I feel like, you know, excuse me,
No, sure, don't
when
worry.
you're going from like a regular any percent, and eventually you're working up to a run like this. Like this was never really the plan to go for a run like this. Just at some point last year was like, you know what, I should go ahead for it. I'm de-rusted on DS3. I'm in good shape on this game. Let's just try it. But like, if you want to go for those kinds of runs where you are definitely increasing the difficulty, and here I'm going back for more Carthus Rouge because I'm out, and that was a good opportunity there after he cast poison. But like one thing that I always did was, when I was working on all bosses no hit, I would fight Cinder with +0 twin blades. And that's how I learned to get good at him. And then when I started doing like more runs, I would fight him, +0, new game +7, stuff like that. That's how I would learn to survive in the fights. And once you learn to survive, then you can learn to get more aggressive.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's just like
true.
that's just sort of the way that I like mentally approached it. Once you get good at surviving, then you can get good at punishing.
Yeah,
And it works
I
very
agree. I
well.
agree on that. That's what I did. Actually, I was having problems in general, mostly on the sword phase because I didn't truly exactly what you say, because it was sometimes it's better to roll backward and then outpace and then roll into
Hmm.
it, and then something is better to roll right. It's something like that. So I just stood
Yeah.
there and I said, okay, I want to get a kill with with the not a +0 but a broken twin blade. That I don't know
Hmm.
exactly how I was doing like 160 with the L1. It wasn't that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
The best I could think I could do was mostly like a bit more than half the health, but it took me a while for sure. But I think I learned a lot of how to punish him. I feel way more safe with the fight. Not 100%. Like, I'm not in the point to say, oh, each try I'm going to kill Cinder. But I feel way more comfortable fighting sword fate, saying, okay, I already know how to dodge a big amount of the attack. I should not be scared, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Once you get more comfortable dodging the boss, it's also you just get more familiar with the move set. You get more
Exactly.
familiar with how you want to move sometimes. And then say like right now, somebody might be watching this fight and they might be, oh, the way he's punishing this attack, maybe I'll try it sometime. I do that all the time when I'm watching other runners.
Oh,
I
me
watch how
too.
they fight bosses and you might notice a little detail like, oh, that looks really good. I should try that sometime. And then, again, it's all part of figuring out your style, what works for you. But there's nothing wrong with like, copying what you see other runners do and trying it to figure out what works for you. And it's all part of the process. So, but yeah, like it's just, again, going back to trying different things, not just completely copying what other people are doing, but, yeah, going for, like checking what multiple people are doing and trying a variety of things. All right. I love fighting Cinder like this. It is so fun. Every time I get a chance, I will fight him with Bandit's Knife purely to be able to fight him this way. But Quick Step has more iframes than even a light roll with Blood Ring. So, and the nice thing is that it comes out the moment you press L2, not when you release your
Okay.
button, like with rolling. So here, I'm just dashing through every single attack and punishing every single attack. Even there, I got a greedy punish in, and like I knew I could get away with it because you can just dash through every single one of these attacks and get good punishes going. It's very, very satisfying. But you do have to be careful about managing your stamina, managing your FP, and
Oh, true, because the quick you can do the quick step without FP, but then it doesn't have iframes.
Yeah, or it has like an extremely low amount or something like that. But it's not safe to do it with no FP. So here I know that I've run out of FP, so I got to start rolling. Unfortunately, this part of phase two didn't go perfectly, but it's not that big a deal. It's just it wasn't really optimal.
It will be
But if you
scare
do
me
this
a bit to
right,
do it because I will probably not be that good at managing the FP because and I will be,
yeah,
and then fighting Cinder like so close. It's a bit like I find him like medium range, like
mm-hmm,
baiting the jumps and baiting
mm-hmm.
the like attack. That's how I have been fighting
Oh
him.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. And but excuse me, it just occurred to me like every time I do a run like this where I'm using Bandit's knife, it's hard to go back to fighting Cinder normal in phase two because here I can just quick step and punish everything. And I mean every single attack other than this wombo combo. You can quick step and punish as long as you have stamina for it. And it's just all I do is just press L2 and attack, press L2 and attack. Like I don't even really need to think about what I'm doing here. So it's so odd. And then you go to fight him with like a normal weapon in phase two, and you actually have to fight him for real. It's so odd.
Yeah, I can imagine. It can be
And
tricky.
yeah, the bleed just works so well here. I remember what would that have been? 2.5 years ago, I think it was. The summer Team Hitless fundraising event. We had Shilky and Competitive Pie were doing a race of SL1 no upgrades any percent. And this is where I learned about this strat. I saw Shilky doing this strat, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is how I want to fight Cinder. So I tried it out and fell in love with it, and I use it every time I can. But I
It's
remember
really
that
really cool.
and that event was so good because both of them were hitless, but there was some goofy timing issue, so we couldn't really figure out how fast or how close they actually were. But in the end, I think we found out that it was down to like 2 or 3 seconds. So you got two of the best runners doing SL1, no upgrades, any percent. They both did it hitless during an event and within like 5 seconds of each other. It
It's
is
amazing.
wild how good that event was. And it was like that's one of those things that motivated me to try this run is seeing, you know, highly experienced and skilled runners just showing what they can do. And like it's one thing that definitely pushed me to like try this kind of stuff because I never would have probably otherwise. It's like, oh, that's way too difficult and all this stuff. But like a lot of the things that you do, other than just like getting good at the boss fights, all of the strats in like the running sections and even some of the stuff in the boss fights, it's very accessible to anybody, even with, very little experience. You just have to try it out and be willing to, fail it enough times until you figure it out and make it work. And that's what's scary sometimes, but it does work very well.
That's for sure. I find really really nice like learning this strat is so fun for sure. It's really really fun.
hmm Yeah. But yeah, I think that's about all I can really say about like some of my favorite runs. So no bonfire any percent. The Elden Ring sorcery all boss run, the SL1 weapon relay in DS3, and SL1 mimic head run in DS3. All of those are my favorite runs, mostly because like they can be difficult in their own ways, but they were the most fun to actually figure out. Those are the runs that are the most satisfying for me, or where I have to figure something out and like really do a lot of testing and where I eventually learn about the game. Um, yeah, if you want to, I don't know how much more time you want to watch the master run stuff,
Let's
and I
I
know
would
there
like I
may
would
be
like
some other runs.
yeah, let's
Yeah,
keep
whatever
probably
works.
I would like to say nameless because
Yeah,
nameless is
sure.
one of my and then we can talk about the other runs we have so we can review them together.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's
So
see.
I actually do something pretty similar on Nameless to what I just did on Cinder. I'll fight phase one. Well, with phase one, I fight with Gale's Great Sword. It's one of these nice great swords that has the Poke R2 move set, and it does pretty solid damage against the Drake. And then phase two, I'll break out the Bandit's Knife again. Very fun. Oh, I went into this fight. If you look under my stamina bar, I have no icons. I didn't set up RTSR before
Oh.
going into this fight. And
Oh
I have to do some ring swapping in the middle of this fight to set
my
up to
god.
switch over to Lloyd's. It was so stupid, man. Like
If
this
it's
is
not
a
scuff,
point.
it's not a hitless run. Remember,
Yeah.
guys.
This is a point in the run where like so I was doing this offline and I wasn't expecting the run to get anywhere near this far. And then I was in the middle of the Demon Prince fight, or like I tried to go live right before I entered the Demon Prince fight, and something went wrong and OBS did not go live. So like 2 or 3 minutes later, in the middle of the fight, I find an opening where both of them are far away and not a threat, and I go live. So I was streaming the last like 90 minutes of this run. So it was nice because like I wanted people to be able to see the end in case we got it, but it was going to be really frustrating if I went live that far into a run and then threw it somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that this worked out.
I just actually see a message from Petri on the chat. It literally say live ring swap classic.
Oh yeah. Right. It was I mean, I've done enough runs and like I feel very comfortable with my menuing that I've had to do stuff like that before, but doing it at the end of a run this long, yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
For sure.
So I remember at this point thinking, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna bone out of the fight? Am I gonna, what can I do? And I said, screw it, just go with Lloyd's. It's good enough. And of course it was.
Mathematically incorrect, but okay.
Yeah, it's whatever. It was going to be really annoying if I went into the final boss fight and had to bone out of it because I screwed up. I did not want that, so I just stuck with Lloyd's, and that was fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. We are not help in this house. Bunny out like 4 times from final boss and still getting the run.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
I still think that's probably one of the best Hitless moments, and that and the 7-hour run Hitless run, Elden Ring run.
Yeah, the best runs have some scuff in them.
The best runs, yeah. That's for sure.
Around this point, I start thinking, I don't
babes.
like changing
when
my
can I join the
beginning of
podcast?
phase 2. So I decide to go ahead and swap out to the Bandit's Knife now, and I do need to swap one ring to make this work properly. So we do that quickly while he's in the air, and then I can finish him off with Bandit's Knife easily enough. His health is low, so it's no big deal. But this just allows me to safely apply the resin and use a Blossom at the beginning of phase 2. And now, this fight didn't go amazing. He actually gave me pretty not great RNG, but I did the same thing that I was doing with Cinder. Dash through, punish, and keep on going. And if you manage it correctly, you can get a stagger at a very opportune time. But like I was saying, he was not giving me great RNG. Like, it started off okay, but he keeps on dashing away like this. And just wasn't really what you want. Another dash. Yeah, see, he just keeps on dashing away from me. So
God damn.
And this attack is so nasty. It would have been so easy to get hit by that. It has a very nasty hitbox. But other than that, it was just, surviving the fight, keep on punishing, and you'll eventually get it. And it worked out, but
as long as it works, it works.
The greatest. Yeah.
But hey, it looked nasty though.
Yeah.
That's important. It's just that it looks so clean. Nameless is probably one of my favorite fighting Souls in general.
Oh yeah, he's a really cool boss. There are some things that are goofy about him, but despite all that, he's a really damn cool boss. Very fun to fight.
I feel that the moment that you discover that you can roll into the attacks, it's just that it's a new world, like for this fight,
Yeah. I don't really remember much about my first playthrough, but I do know that this guy absolutely kicked my ass for a long time.
This and Midir on casual playthrough, god damn.
Yeah, Midir packs a punch, to say the least. He really hurts, and once you figure out how to fight him, he's actually one of the simpler bosses for the DLC at the very least. But he is brutal on your first casual playthrough.
It doesn't help that he has such a big amount of health.
Yeah, for sure. It's a long fight even on this run. And it's so great to see. Like, I can imagine that, I know Gino was the first to do SO1 no upgrades, and he's mentioned before that, like, at the time it seemed like the kind of run that no one would ever want to do. And here we've now got 10 people who have done SO1 no upgrades in some way, shape, or form. At least all bosses I'm talking about. Doom just completed that run a couple days ago, and he did it in 3 hours and 4 minutes. The fastest that anyone's ever done it. Like, that's wildly fast
God
compared
damn.
to, I think my run, my SL1 no upgrades, all bosses was like 4.5 to 5 hours. And his was barely 3 hours. He was just so much more efficient with it. It's amazing. So it's wild to see how things have come along over the past few years.
Totally. Like the improvement in general in fights or strats is crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that I'm looking this fight, Nameless have so much attack that are like Cinder and DSA. I never knew.
Yeah,
But
there's he's got some fun ones, and like a lot of it can be excuse me,
no, really,
just sort
worry.
of based on, your position and distance and stuff like that. Like if you get behind him, he has a very nasty attack. He's super super fast. Like he turns and he slams his weapon onto the ground from like overhead, and it's incredibly fast, but you're only going to see it if you're directly behind him. So yeah, just learning to control your position helps a lot on these fights.
Yeah,
And here, yeah, mostly just trying to not, make a mistake here. I know I'm really close to the end.
look
And
at.
this was such a weird day. I remember, getting this kill, and I didn't expect to get this run. I did it, I started it offline, and then here you get the kill, and it's like, well,
Okay.
now what do I do?
I strongly hope you at least buy yourself an ice cream or something.
I think I treated well, it was really late. It was already like, I think it was already like 1:30 a.m. at this point, so I was spent for the day. But I think the next day I treated myself. Um, but it's so weird. It didn't even sink in for a while that I actually did this. Like I
It's
never expected to go for this run on New Game Plus 7. I was already really happy having done it on New Game, and then for whatever reason, I was just like, let's go ahead and give it a shot. And I don't know. Like I can't imagine any run that's gonna top this in difficulty. There's I mean there's different things.
SL1 master run, one hand blind, something like that.
Yeah, right. There's so many things you could think of that like maybe somebody could do, but like realistically, how far will people take it? Will somebody do this run with like no ox? Like that seems impossible just because of deacons.
Oh
It seems
god.
wildly impractical to do that ever, but who knows, man? I mean, I I never expected to see it even at New Game, and it's been done. So who knows what'll happen? But it's just really cool. Like this is a tough run. I would not necessarily recommend anyone go for this because the grind is brutal. But if you really want to crank up the difficulty and really learn the bosses, this is something that you can work towards over time. Just make sure to mix it up with some other stuff so you don't go crazy. That's I think the important part.
Now here's the question. I asked this question also to Ghost related to the all achievements. With the big but I know that there are not that much Bloodborne runners because of the the fact that you have to run on PS4, but the S3 is more open on this. So if you have to choose a bunch of runners that if they started to run this today or tomorrow and they could get a run, would that person will be like which bunch of runners?
Oh, this run?
Yeah, exactly. The master run all bosses.
Yeah. So I mentioned Doom recently. He just got this run on New Game a couple days ago.
Okay.
And so Dead and Doom is his name. And he's done a lot of runs in a very short period of time. And I could see him potentially taking this run on because I think anybody who's done this run on New Game can fundamentally do the same thing on New Game Plus 7. There are details to learn and there are bosses to practice, but you've already clearly shown that you know how to fight the bosses, you know how to survive. It's just a matter of adapting to some of the changes in New Game Plus 7. So I would think, I would generally say anybody who's done this run on New Game could do it on New Game Plus 7. But like specifically, Doom comes to mind because he's done so many good, impressive runs in such a short time. Like I could see him doing that. Nunsei is another one. Greg
Ooh.
Nunsei. A lot of people don't know Nunsei as well. He, tends to do his runs his own way and everything like that. But he did he did the same thing. SL1 no upgrades. He did it in like under 3.5 hours, and that was at the time by far the fastest it had ever been done. And like he's got probably more experience than anyone. Like if anybody doesn't know about Nunse, he's completed a no-hit run with literally every weapon in the game, and he's now trying to do it with spells, I believe.
God
So,
damn.
like, you want to talk about runners who have experience? Nunse is the go-to runner. Like, there's no one else who compares, I would say. He was working on all enemies no hit, and he has a personal best of 1 hit on that run.
Sheesh.
He was working on enemy randomizer no hit, which is absurd in this game. And he was putting a serious effort into it for a while and making good progress, but that is just a brutal challenge to do. So I know V-Swed started working on this, but then he got pulled aside because of all the Elden Ring stuff. But no doubt he could do this run too.
Also,
he's already, yeah, and Arch Thrones and stuff like that. So, but he's also preparing for like Amit League and stuff like that. So I think his attention is distracted. He was beginning to work on Master Run, and there's no doubt that he can do it. He's done he did a run to try and like test it out a bit, and I mean he was doing fine on everything. Like there's no doubt he could do it. It's just
it's a matter of time.
I think he's distracted with other stuff right now. So I don't know who will do it next. I was glad to see that CBD got it as well. I know he was working on it for a while and took a break from it, and then eventually came back and was working on it for a bit. And he got it not too long ago too. So kind of wild that like 2 people have already gotten this run this year. I would never have expected something like that. But yeah, who knows? We'll see. I think there's definitely people who could go for it, and
it's just it's such a crazy run in general.
Sorry, say that again.
It's such a crazy run, so it's hard to understand that people get it. Like learning the bosses this way, understanding the game is hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It is a really tough game for no hit. Like, I don't have tons of experience in Dark Souls 1, but maybe I'll compare to Elden Ring. Like the boss fights tend to be much more manageable. Like the damage you have can be obscene in that game. So
yeah, of course.
A lot of times you don't need to learn the bosses, but I would think in general, like the quality of the boss fights is just better in Dark Souls 3 overall. Like Dark Souls 3 has plenty of terrible bosses as well. Deacons and tree balls, and I think the Ancient Wyvern is a silly gimmick fight and stuff like that. Even Wolnir is extremely annoying. So it's got its share of not amazing bosses, but other than that, overall, the level of quality is very, very high. And it's one of those games, it's very satisfying to learn those bosses in and out and to actually get good at them. That's what makes it, I think one of the more enjoyable runs, or one of the more enjoyable games to run because of how fun and satisfying it can be.
Yeah, that for sure. Now, I have this question. If you have to choose, for example, 3 person that you would consider the GOATs, the greatest of all the time of Dark Souls 3, what would you choose? Like, obviously, but there is people that have done crazy runs on different ways or have such knowledge of the game. Yeah. Like, for example, we have Shilky, we have Ghost on Bloodborne, we Nunse, Sweat, Miko. So if you have to choose 3 person for the GOAT title, what would the runners will be?
Are we... Is this exclusive to Dark Souls
3?
No,
yeah, to Dark Souls 3,
Okay. I mean, it's hard to say anyone other than Gino right away. I mean, he set the benchmark for so many of these runs so early on. We're all still trying to catch up to him. Like, there's no way you can omit him from that list. So Gino is right up there at the top.
Yeah, that's for sure.
There's no way you can't include him. I'm personally always impressed with Nunse, with how he does his runs, and like I was saying, he's got probably more experience than anyone else in this game, and just the sheer quantity of runs that he's done and how well he does them. I don't think there's really anyone who really compares to his level of skill and experience currently. So he's got to be up there. For that 3rd spot, like there's a lot of runners that really, I don't know, inspired and motivated me to keep doing runs in this game. And you already mentioned a lot of them. Shilky is right up there. Like, I'm impressed how many times I kept on going back and seeing what did Shilky do, because
It's just that
I think
question. I wonder what
yeah,
Shilky is doing.
yeah, like if I'm doing something, I remember when I was doing SL1 plus 0 all bosses, SL1 no upgrades. Like I had every runner's run bookmarked when it came to that run. I would go look at what Gino and Tricky and Sweat and CBD and Shilky and Pi. I would look at what every single one of them did sometimes, but more times than not, I was very surprised. Well, actually, I wasn't surprised, but it was kind of funny how many times it was like, yeah, Shilky's strat seems really damn good here. So at least for me, I would have to put Shilky up there. There's no doubt. And considering how many games he's jumped to and how many crazy difficult runs he's done, like the run that he did in Sekiro, all bosses, whatever it was, I don't even know, AP1, ultra debuff, sword only, yada yada yada. Like no one had done a run like that until he came along. And in Bloodborne, what did he do? He did
They have done a
weapon
lot
relay
of
all
runs.
bosses. He did what was it, like BL4 no buff all bosses or something like that? Absolutely wild. So, but for me, for Dark Souls 3, I would probably say Gino, Nunse, and Shilky are probably, for me, I would say the top three goats of that game of all time. Like, it's just hard for me to think of other runners. And when there's only three spots and there's so many runners who have made an impact on that game and on that community, um, those are the three that stand out for me.
Yeah, I think that I agree. Now, once again, Bender, GG on that. Your Magnus Opus for now. I think it's an amazing run for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
It's truly an amazing run. Now we pretty much finished what will be the reviewing of the master run and talking
Yeah,
a bit
yeah.
more about you. Let's go more into the community side. We know
Mm-hmm.
that
Absolutely.
Dark Souls 3 is really big. I don't want to extend that much. I don't know how much time you have. So if
No,
you
I'm good to keep going. Yeah.
Oh, okay, perfect. Then we have this run from, let me see the name, Domenico Brazas. Domenico
Yeah,
Brazas.
Domenico. Yeah.
He,
Domenico's done some cool runs. So oh, sorry, no, I don't mean to interrupt
no,
you.
no,
Keep
sure.
going.
It's just that this run is this is from 6 months ago. Is region lock Dark Souls 3. I have seen this
Yeah.
one work on Sekiro. I have seen the whole also on Elden Ring, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly how it works on Dark Souls 3. Do you have any experience with region lock on Dark Souls 3?
No, not at all. This is actually really cool. I've been wanting to. I knew that this run existed. I remember seeing that he completed this run. So I'm looking at the splits here, and it makes sense what he's doing. So obviously, you kill Gundyr, you go into High Wall. So he's killing Dancer and then Vort. Um, so I guess that's the early part of Lothar Castle, like High Wall. Dancer is right down there. Include her right away. Um, so that makes sense. But then I also don't speak Spanish,
No,
so or
I
I'm
think I
assuming
think it's
there's Spanish.
Italian. I think it's Italian.
Oh, Italian. Oh, Oh, yeah, yeah. Wrong runner. Dominico's Italian. I knew this. Duh, silly me. So who's after Vort then? I see that would be Sage.
Gran
Oh, it's got to
Bosco.
be It's got to be tree balls. It's
Yeah,
got
I
to be,
think so.
right.
Yeah. Gran Bosco. I think that Bosco is 3 or something like that. So I'm guessing that Gran Bosco is like big 3.
Yeah, yeah.
Or is
The
little
Great Wood. That's
opera.
what it is.
Yeah,
Great Wood.
exactly. Gridwood. Yeah.
Exactly. And
So
then
Saggio
uh
will be Sage. Guardiani will which one will be? Like
I
Guardian?
think Abyss Watchers.
Abyss what? Yeah.
Wait,
Abyss Watcher, yeah. That will be Abyss Watcher.
Abyss Watchers and Wolnir.
Walner
See, it's
then.
a
Yeah.
it's a little odd. It's a little odd to go for Crystal Sage. I guess it makes sense. Yeah, it actually does make sense because Cathedral is such a separate area. Like I would expect you kill Crystal Sage and then go over for Deacons, but it's not really like it's not really that close together. There's a whole lot that you would have to do. So it actually does make sense to take on Crystal Sage because you're right there in Crucifixion Woods and it's, that arena is right next to you there. So it makes sense to kill Sage and then yeah, go down for go down for Abyss Watchers and continue on to Wolnir. It's such an odd order because how much of the game are you completing? He's doing in any percent, but he's also including tree balls.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's basically what it comes down to. Because you could potentially include, once you've killed Wolnir, why not go down and kill Old Demon King down in Smoldering Lake? But that is another thing where it's like very separate, a very distinct area, far enough away from other stuff that you don't need to include it necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
Um,
guessing that the idea is before progressing to the next area, he's killing all the bosses from that area. That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, there are some that are simply essential. Like,
Oh
oh,
God.
that's terrible right there.
Ooh, okay,
Getting stuck in the doorway.
Ooh,
Oh,
okay,
I hate that.
he saved it. Let's go.
Yeah,
That
good
could be
save.
scary for sure. That could be really scary.
Also interesting that he's starting with the bandit's knife, and like a lot of runners. Well, I guess it makes sense because let me think about that for a second. Well, maybe it's just personal preference or whatever, but a lot of times you're going to start with the assassin class. You have spook right away, and then you get the twin blades whenever it makes sense. But he must not be doing
Yeah,
that. So interesting choice on the starting class.
yeah, is he going also for the broadsword? Maybe he also doing it SL1? No, he will be if he was doing SL1, he would choose the other class, right?
Right, the one with the club at
The
the
club,
start.
yeah,
Yeah, this is
exactly.
the thief
The
class.
thief, yeah. It's weird that he's
Yeah,
going for unless he's going for like an like a something. No, he's going for the broadsword. That's
he's going
weird.
for the broadsword. Okay,
Well, no,
that.
it makes sense because we're
Yeah.
talking about region lock, right? So he probably going for
Hmm.
a better weapon for board or something, and he probably the
Ooh, nice
bandit
cancel.
knife is for to have a more comfortable gun deer and to kill easier boar. Maybe he's not used to killing boar with the bandit knife. Maybe.
Well, it also the you also have a good setup here. Both the bandit's knife and the broadsword, like the broadsword, raw, get the raw infusion. You're already doing pretty respectable damage, even with low upgrades.
Yeah,
And with the
true.
bandit's knife, if you go, even without a Carthus Rouge, you can do a good amount of damage with the bleed procs. Um, so maybe he's using a variety of weapons throughout the run here. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, this dancer fight, this is the play. Yeah, but this is why. This is why he's using the bandit's knife because of dancer
Oh,
early.
yeah, makes sense. So that he can get blood proc
Yeah.
on. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, makes sense. Sure, makes
Yeah.
sense.
I remember a couple years ago in the summer, Team Hitless was doing bounties. It wasn't as frequent as they are now, but at the time they were doing Osiris percent. So
Oh yeah, I
start a fresh
remember.
character. Yeah, start a fresh character. And the goal is to simply get to Osiris and kill him as quickly as possible and do it hitless. And this was the setup 100%. You would start as the thief class, go with the bandit's knife. You pick up those gold pine resin for dancer, and then you can pick up dark resins for Osiris if you want. But basically, this is the idea: is rush these bosses, be aggressive with the bandit's knife. Oh, he got in a really unfortunate spot. So what's Dancer going to do in terms of spins? That was
What
close.
determines if dancer do 7 spin or less?
So it depends where you are. If you're behind her during phase transition, and it also depends on two things: your position. Are you behind or in front of her, and
Okay.
how far away from her you are. So like normally, what you'll see is people will get, a bit behind dancer, but not too far away. And in that case, she will do 7 spins. I think it's 6 normal spins and then the double spin at the end. And if you're in front of her and still at like a short to medium distance, then she will only do 4 spins. I think it 3 and then the double spin, or 4 and then the double spin. I forget.
Yeah, I think it's three
Um,
and then the double spin.
I think that's right. But it's all about like if you're really far away from her, if you're behind her and really far away from her, she can do like 9 spins or more. I
God
think
damn.
it actually really depends. So this is one of those fights that, and like I'm a testament to this. Um, you learn how to do this, how to, you get behind her right butt cheek and you stay there and you control her position. If you get out of position,
it became
like,
tricky.
yeah, most no-hit runners, and I'm not blaming anyone, but most no-hit runners don't really know how to fight her out of that position. And
No,
I'm guilty of that myself. I
yeah,
don't know
me
how to
too,
do
me
it.
too. I have no
Like,
idea.
I
And
learned
also
how to control her position and how to do it well
yeah,
so that I don't
exactly.
have to worry about it.
And also the camera doesn't help a lot for this fight.
Yeah, that's one thing is he fought with lock on a lot. Most times I will fight without lock on because I find it much more comfortable without lock on. So it's a personal preference thing. Find whatever works for you. But like there, the point where it locks onto her is so high up that the camera is down near the ground, and
Yeah,
it really limits
exactly.
how much you can see.
That's
So
actually
yeah,
got me hit several times because of that. I'm actually thinking of doing the fight, trying it lock off to see if it actually goes better. I
yeah. And the other nice thing now, he fought a tough boss. He's got 60,000 souls. So whatever he needs to buy or level up, he's cruising at this point. He's got
yep,
everything covered.
he's going to
Good
get
for
a
him.
really good upgrade
Oh,
for other
interesting that he
bosses.
went with the bandit's knife here, even though he's got the broadsword. The broadsword is really good on this fight.
Maybe for quick step.
Um, yeah, that's also true too. But I've actually fought Vort with daggers before as well. Like it makes sense. It's just an interesting choice.
I find it more
Also,
comfy. I've been
yeah.
using the dagger to fight
Hmm.
to fight him. I feel really comfy. I'm not going to lie. I feel
Yeah, it
mostly
actually is.
like turning your like not counting hit, just spamming until he faces.
Yeah, exactly. I did that same thing. What I did was I used the regular dagger and I would two-hand it and I would just go ham. Like I would just R1 until the end of time, until I ran out of stamina, basically. And it was very comfy, actually. So yeah, no, can't blame him at all. So you got to imagine here. I'm wondering what his setup is going to be like for the Great Wood fight because he's got the bandit's knife, but that's not going to be great. I think the broadsword is going to be clearly better, but is he going to do that with no upgrades or he
That's a
didn't
good question.
he he would have probably picked up the one Titanite shard right before Gundyr, and then there are more that you can get. So he could potentially go in with like +1 or +2 for the Great Wood fight. But I'm very curious what that's going to look like. But this all makes sense. I mean, you're going to run through Undead Settlement like normal, and then basically once you get to Great Wood, you're going to have to just fight him before continuing through the rest of Undead Settlement.
Yeah.
And then, but I am kind of interested. Yeah, what does he do in terms of like rings? What does he do in terms of weapon upgrades?
Yeah, because
How that's gonna go.
he can really move a lot. That's for sure.
He did kill. So he is gonna use a raw infusion because he did kill the crystal lizard. Oh, he didn't get any of those dogs. That's rough.
Not cool. Not cool. Hey, yo.
But you know what? It's a surprising.
Ooh.
It's
Oh God.
Dominico's also done speed runs.
Okay, makes sense.
He's done no-hit speed runs, so sometimes just running by the dogs makes sense. And it's surprising how many times it works out like that, where only one of them chases you or something, and you can deal with that one pretty easily. So he got through it. Like, yeah, it's just unfortunate when that happens, but
it can be really scary.
Oh yeah.
Truly, truly scary.
Oh yeah.
But at least he's precise with that. He knows what he's doing. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, those Farmer John enemies right there. I hate them with a passion. The ones guarding that house.
Oh God!
I can't tell you how many times I've lost runs there.
I have learned a bunch already.
Yeah, they're terrible.
I just started to throw fire bombs at them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got them available, yeah, absolutely. Just that works totally fine.
It's way better, I think. Like, just I will better lose 10-20 seconds than resetting, I feel.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if Dominico's going to kill the crystal lizard that comes up here, the one where you normally get the sharp gem.
Yep.
Because you could put that on the bandit's knife. So we know he has the raw gem for the broadsword, but is he going to bother killing the lizard here or not? That'll tell us a little bit as well.
Yeah, because I'm guessing he's not running twin blades. I'm guessing that. He's
Yeah, I
probably.
mean, you wonder, right? Like, he could go get them. He could easily go
Oh
get
yeah,
them, but
he's going to kill the
if he's
lizard.
yeah. Okay, so he is. All right.
Okay,
And
that's.
then pretty soon here he'll head over towards the Great Wood fight.
It could be a little tricky fight on low damage.
Oh, yeah, it definitely can be.
I just learned that this is the usual way to dodge that guy. Lately, I had to watch that guy because usually I was just running straight to the other guys and jumping. And I was thinking to myself, yep, this is not safe. I'm going to get hit someday.
Yeah, the only thing is that I don't know what he is, that jailer or whatever, the guy with the giant pot. Or no, he's got the machete. Sometimes he doesn't behave. Sometimes he does different attacks, but most of the time he will run by you like that and you can bait him to fall off. It's just not guaranteed. But if you get used to that little parkour that he did afterward, where he jumped up to the mortician's ashes, that is a very nice way of dealing with that area. So
yeah, that's what I do.
that's definitely like what I prefer, but it's sometimes easier said than done. It takes a little bit of practice to get that parkour down. So yeah, he despawned Hodrick and he's going to come back for the fight. And yeah, this makes sense. You want the bonfire up here so that you can. It would be silly to go directly to the tree balls fight because then you have no bonfire to go to afterward.
Yeah, makes sense. And this is still the same area, so it's legal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't break anything about region lock. It would be interesting because, like, when you're talking about region lock in Elden Ring, what a lot of people do is they will say, like, when you open up the fast travel menu, they'll generally say that regions are broken up the way they are in the fast travel menu. So I'm curious, like, when you enter a new area here in DS3, it comes up with that text to tell you that you're in a new area. I'm just curious, like, what was his way of determining, what area is what or whatever.
I mean,
how do you go about that?
It
seems pretty obvious, but sometimes there's some nuance to it.
Yeah, I'm guessing he's following the how he the teleportation,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing he
Yeah. Oh yeah, the same thing with the fast travel menu. That
yeah,
might be
exactly.
it.
Like
Yeah. So
for example, Cathedral and Iritil, those are two different regions. On catacombs, the catacombs and after Iritil, like you see they are really like you're supposed to go after deacons, you're supposed to go to Iritil, for example, but you reach Iritil after killing Wolnir,
Right.
So I'm guessing that he's taking this in account, like which region is which.
Okay, so he's doing a raw broadsword +1, which is good. This is actually very similar to what you see some speedrunners do. Oh, he can't actually wield the broadsword yet. He didn't have the levels for it. That's why he wasn't using the broadsword on Vort.
Oh, makes sense. In there,
he didn't have in strength.
Yeah, because the thief
he would have had to two-handed.
Yeah, exactly, makes sense. And the thief start with less strength, and instead of the level 1 that start like with 11, I think.
Yeah, 11. Absolutely. So there we are. And I did notice a couple of things. He put a lot of levels into dexterity, so maybe he's going for the bandit's knife as a main weapon, or maybe he is going to go with the twin blades. But I also did notice he put 15 levels or he's got 15 intelligence, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see hidden body, which of course is fine. I just noticed it. And yeah, he put a lot of those souls to good use, and he saved some, which is smart because eventually when he gets like the ashes to purchase Titanite, then he can upgrade both weapons if he wants to, or multiple. Maybe he upgrades 3 weapons. Who knows? So
yeah.
All right. So how's he going to handle the tree balls fight? He did buy a whole bunch of regular fire bombs, and he did go get the fire clutch ring, which is good. So that's going to help with the fire damage here. So this all makes sense. But yeah, a lot of times, if you're getting into any percent glitchless speed runs, the faster runs. Well, okay, if you're doing all bosses, I guess. Well, no, sorry, I'm misspeaking. Even for an any percent, some runners, especially if you're like relatively new to speed runs, you'll go with a +1 raw short sword as your starting weapon.
Okay.
And you'll take that all the way through Abyss Watchers. And then after that, you go get the Grave Warden Ashes, which allow you to have to purchase regular Titanite. You wouldn't bother picking up a whole bunch of Titanite because it's slow, and you want to go up for the Dream Chasers Ashes because that's slow too.
That's it.
But
It's time lock,
the
basically.
Grave Warden Ashes, the Grave Warden Ashes are like pretty on the way, and they give you unlimited Titanite shards. So a +1 raw short sword is very common, but a similar setup with the broadsword is also going to be very good here. So this is actually a very reasonable setup. Like, it's not going to be easy by any means, but I think he'll do just fine here on this fight. I'm curious to see how many hits it takes to break everything.
Probably not that much, but I'm curious too.
Mm-hmm.
He probably just taking in consideration when he activates.
Yeah, so he's going to go for the fire bundle.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
4. Nice. 4 to break is very good. That's very good.
That's really good
3
damage.
to break that hand. And then the way...
Oh, God.
He's going for it right away. That's a good one to do. The only thing is there is a specific way that you can break that third set of sacks. And if you do it just right, you will guarantee a stagger on Greatwood. And it makes the phase transition very controlled. Here, there was a little bit of RNG with how tree balls could have responded, but that's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that bad.
Oh, okay. So he broke the center sacks to get that stagger. Then he broke the other one. Then he hit the hand to finalize the kill, to do enough damage to kill. Oh, that was good. That was very nice.
Really clean, really clean.
Yeah. And then, bone out afterward.
Yeah, bone out. And after this is Sage. Yeah, makes sense. There's no more bosses in this area.
Yeah, he just went back to Firelink instead of the previous bonfire, I think is all.
Rip, time loss.
That's not a big deal. Major time loss.
Major time loss, time to reset.
So I would expect to see the Bandit's Knife on Crystal Sage because of the bleed procs, but you can't get any Karthus Rouge before then, so I don't know. It could go either way, really. I'm also curious. I'm wondering if he'll go up to Upper Undead Settlement and get the Flynn's Ring and Chloranthy.
Probably. Let's see. Maybe not that much. I'm curious about it.
You would consider that like it's another. I mean, it's part of Undead Settlement.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to go up there. Honestly, I feel like if he was going to do that, well, no, never mind. That doesn't make any sense. I was just thinking, what if you go to Upper Undead Settlement, you get Flynn's and Chloranthy, and then you can drop down the tower to get to Tree Balls. Nice. Ooh. He did a quick step fall damage cancel there.
Ooh, nice. That was clean.
Yeah, very nice. It's those are kind of weird to do, but they're very nice once you get used to them. And then, is he doing the parkour? Yeah.
It's kind of made me learn how to do that. It's so nice.
It's not that bad. There's a particular rock that sticks out of the wall there, and once you know to look for it, like the moment you're at that rock, you basically just turn a little bit to the right and jump at the same time. And
it's way easier than tree skip.
Yeah. It's very comfortable. Like I pretty much do it in every run. Like it's pretty free.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Then, none of the enemies chase you to the door, which is great. So he is safe here for this.
Is there something to, because for me, always the enemy following me. Always.
Well, if you go up to that little platform up there, they shouldn't chase you. Like with that jump that he did made a difference.
Okay.
Oh, bit of leg there.
Yeah, I think it was just the Twitch BOD being Twitch BOD.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, I'm guessing he's waiting here.
So let me think here. He's already got the broadsword at +1. What other upgrades can he get? He could get 1 Titanite shard coming up. A second one. So I would be surprised to see any more weapon upgrades before Crystal Sage.
I mean, he's going to get some Titanites around here, so maybe he will upgrade.
Yeah, there's not that many though. There's I I can think of one, two, maybe a third one, but that would be risky before the Crucifixion Woods bonfire. Like, I can't think of enough Titanite in the area. Oh, it looks like he might be going back up.
Yeah, maybe he's going for Chlorantis and Flynn.
Yeah, Chloranthy is really nice to have. Like, when you're looking at the amount of stamina regen, Chloranthy Ring is better than Grass Crest Shield by a significant amount. And Flynn's is also nice for the extra damage. And with a build like this, where you're using the Bandit's Knife, that's a very light weapon. You're hardly, your equip load is very low, so you're actually getting a nice bonus from that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Ooh.
It's so scary to deal with the fire demons sometimes. There are some good ways to do it, but usually you can just do something like that and run past him. But he can be scary to deal with.
This area, it's just that since Iskaro told me, oh, you don't need this for any percent, I didn't even learn how to do it.
Sorry, for what were you talking about for the any percent?
No, that Iskaro didn't teach me how to do this area because he told me that, well, you don't need it, so I never learned how to do it.
You don't necessarily, like, when I was doing all bosses with twin blades, I didn't bother with these rings and I kept just the Grass Crest Shield. Like, really, you don't necessarily need any extra stamina regen. It's just very nice to have.
Yeah, it's nice to have. Yeah, that's for sure.
And, like, at least with Grass Crest Shield, it's a very free pickup. It's right there along the way anyway. But yeah, these rings are nice. The Flynn's ring does a pretty good boost in damage, especially when you only have the Bandit's Knife and your equip load is very low. It gives you a pretty significant boost in damage. It's very noticeable.
Yeah, that's true. It's just that Chloranthy is really nice in general.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's a reason why it's almost used in every round,
Yeah, it's depending on what you're doing. Like, you may choose to not go for it if you're really focusing on speed, if you're trying to be fast. But other than that, it doesn't take a ton of time to go up there, and the benefits are pretty nice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I was saying that earlier, and then I think something happened and I stopped. But Domenico has focused on speed in this game. He's also running this on console, by the way. So I don't think Domenico runs on console, I'm pretty sure, because he has the only console run that's under an hour in this game, I'm pretty sure. I think his time is like 59 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. And I think he even got hidden body on that run, if I remember, because I remember looking that up one time. Oh, no way.
Oh, God.
Oh, my gosh. That is so scary. Like, you want to be full health when you do that drop, because if you don't get that right, you're going to die when you land probably. But I mean, he knows what he's doing. So
who needs full health?
That's so funny, though.
That was nice. Super clean.
Deal with the doggo here. Yeah, a couple of fire bombs is pretty nice.
Easy.
And then, so yeah, there's pretty much, well, you know what? He actually could grab Grass Crest Shield here if he really wanted to, and then run to the Sage Arena, but he's not going to do that from what I'm seeing. So whatever, that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe he has maybe if he has to prioritize the boss, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine he's going to go up and talk to Orbeck up here to get Spook. So he'll do that before going to the boss fight.
Yeah, probably he also for Hidden Body, probably.
Oh, yeah, of course. He has to have Orbeck for Hidden Body, of course.
Also, it's not like Sage is the hardest boss ever, though. Once you learn how to do where he spawned, I think it's nice.
Yeah, when you there's some good guides out there, and there's also like a nice Miko actually made a very nice image in the Team Hitless Discord showing like the rules for the Sage spawns. You don't need to learn every single spawn. Oh, so he's gonna do a parry strat here.
Parry,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool. That's a good idea. But once you learn the rules of how the spawns work, and the crystals especially, it does become a very manageable fight. Good.
Nice. I love this type of parry, to me. It's really nice. Okay.
So he did a limited amount of damage there to make sure that Sage is still like not going into a later phase.
Okay.
So here he's probably going to get another parry.
Come on, Sage, be nice. This is time loss.
Massive time loss. May as well just reset right now.
Boom.
Unbelievable. Oh yeah, and he used the bundle. Good. Is he gonna kill him outright here? I think so.
No.
Oh no,
okay.
he doesn't. Okay. So he gets in position. I think he did a good job.
Nice.
Oh, nice. And then yeah, he just kills him as he spawns in. That was great.
Nice,
Very
clean.
nice.
Really clean, I'm not going to lie.
The after Sage teleported once, he spawned right at the front of the arena, right where the fog gate is, and that's actually like kind of the worst spot for him to be in of the potential ones he could be. But yeah, Dominico did great there. That was fantastic. And so yeah, this makes sense. We're seeing the fast travel menu there, so it's not like he's on a new page where the cathedral would be or something. So
It's still,
yeah,
it's still
makes
on.
sense.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
I mean, I guess that it helps that Dark Souls 3 is really linear in general. So more
Oh,
than way
right.
more than Dark Souls 1 and 2. I'm guessing the region lock on DS2 will be pain for sure. That will be basically doing an all Souls.
Yeah, all the old souls, right?
Yeah, that will be really
would-
hard. Also on Dark Souls 1, that will be on Bloodborne. I don't imagine how it will work on Bloodborne though.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not as familiar even with Dark Souls 1, even though I ran the game for a while. Yeah, I'd have to think about how that would work. Like how would you how would you make that work? Because if you imagine in Dark Souls 1, you go over to the Valley of Drakes and you get Red Tearstone Ring right away, like you do on every run. But you're so close to like Darkroot. Do you dare go up into Darkroot early? Because if you do that, you'd have to fight the Moonlight Butterfly.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd have to fight Sif early. And how can you do that unless you have 20,000 souls? Oh, you have to kill Andre early.
Yeah,
It would be rough. Like
that
that
would
would
be
be a
rough.
rough run
Really,
to do.
really rough. Region lock
Yeah.
DS2 sound mean. Sound really mean actually. Sound really mean. Like it sound complicated. Like in DS1.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, if he has done on Sekiro, I guess it's also. It's just that the main problem would be that the area there's no regions per se. You know.
Yeah, I know very little about Sekiro. I've done 2 playthroughs in the game. I know hardly anything about that game, so I have no idea how that would work.
I mean, it's just that in Sekiro there is regions, you know, because of the how you teleport, like in Dark Souls 3.
Oh yeah, true. The when you go to the
idols.
fast travel menu would have the idols broken up in various sections. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's probably something similar where it's broken up by that, but I don't know the areas well enough to even know what that would mean. But some of the bosses, like if you had to fight, imagine if you're doing like region locked Sekiro and you have to fight all of those like mini bosses and optional bosses, all of the generals and all of the headless and the Shichimen or however they're called, and
all of that.
really
I think that there was someone who was doing it. It was all bosses and mini bosses region lock. It was hard.
Oh man.
It was really it was from someone from the Spanish community. I don't remember the name right now. Noix. It was Noix.
Oh, I've heard the name. Yeah, okay.
He was doing it and it was a crazy run because learning the mini bosses on low damage is hard. If you the upgrade for DS2 is better because the upgrade materials are essentially that's true, Mai. That's true. The upgrade materials on DS2 are region lock in kind of way, so it makes sense doing more an upgrade or than a region lock. It makes more sense. That's true. But yeah, region lock will be hard on DS1 and DS2. It will be hard because there is no region per se, like in Sekiro and Sekiro, Elden Ring, and Dark Souls 3. It will be way more complicated for sure. It's really nice that these areas are separated on regions, so it helps a lot. I guess that they saw how to do it on the moment. They took inspiration to do it. But it's really interesting how people come in a way how to deal with the regions. To be honest, it's really interesting because you have to learn how to deal with this area in a way, because I mean on an 80% you're not supposed to fight uh the tree or do dancer early, so it can be a problem for sure.
Yeah, and even in Elden Ring, so region lock is a really fun concept, and it obviously makes a lot of sense in Elden Ring, where the areas are broken up by like very distinct areas. It's not just even the fast travel menus; they're very very separate from each other. Um, but all bosses region lock has already been done, of course, by Shilky, no one else. But like it's a really cool idea to do, all bosses region lock, and none of this, early setup. You ride through Liurnia and Altus, and you get all of your upgrade materials, and then you just go in blasting. No, you just got to deal with the bosses at lower damage, lower upgrades. You don't have access to all the amazing talismans and all the buffs that you would sometimes have. So it's a really fun idea to do a restriction like this. And again, like going back to, if you want to just try something different, and especially trying something with lower damage, not the most optimal build, that's a great idea for it right there. So I really like the notion. And it's cool that it still works in the other games, but Elden Ring is like very well set up for it.
Yeah, that's true. It just also help because there is some bosses that are really nice to learn how to fight. Like we have the guide for Morgoth made by Recycled. There is even an
Oh yeah, Morgoth's amazing recycle guide and all that
anyway.
stuff.
Anyway, have you seen Recycle Morgoth guide that nobody will read, but you should because it's amazing.
Exactly. There's the emote. Yeah. Actually, that's something that I've been noticing. I've been getting back into Elden Ring, and the run that I'm doing right now is Bloodhound Claws All Great Runes, because Bloodhound Claws were the weapon that I used the most on my first playthrough, and I always wanted to see, what was their full potential like? How good could they really be? And oh my gosh, they are incredibly good. But it's also been fun because I've taken the time to learn how to fight some of these bosses better, and Morgaunt really surprises me. I'm like, there's a lot that I could still learn about that boss, no doubt. There's tons to him.
I
It's a
think
very fun
it's
one.
in general this because I talk a lot about this when the topic of which run will be the hardest on God Run 3 on in general, which run is the hardest on Team Hitless. But I think that when we talk about pure raw skill mindset, if we're talking about just any percent meta, okay, we're talking about the meta run. Dark Souls 3 is the hardest in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think just the combination of the running sections
Running
and
section,
the boss
bosses,
fights, like
enemies, like normal
everything.
enemies,
Yeah.
is hard. But
So,
oh wait,
okay,
it's
this is
not. He's not
interesting here.
offline.
He's got invaded by Hazel
Oh god.
because he's playing on console.
Oh, true. He's playing on console. Oh god.
This doesn't look like it was planned. I wonder if something slipped up.
Is there a way
So,
to not do that on console? Now that I think about it.
no, there's not. You have to deal with the invader. Normally, what you would do there is not get, or you would not go from that grace right there. You would go from the one before, Halfway Fortress, and, you know, like you can kind of go around the edge of the swamp to get,
Okay.
oh, that was so close. One of those NPCs nearly caught
Ooh,
up to him.
that was
So,
scary.
like, I really wonder if this was a mistake, because he was heading over towards like the Twin Blades and the
The green
oh,
increase
you know
shield.
what? Yeah. Okay, so I'm thinking about this. He already I think he's in autopilot right now, because I don't think this was expected. And he's just going through the area and like autopiloted. He was heading towards that whatever that is, that flame there that you normally extinguish. What he's got to do now is he's got to go all the way to the Abyss Watchers boss fight
Oh
right now,
god.
because that's the only thing he can do to despawn the invader. Um, I think something went wrong. Like normally, what you would do is you would go from Halfway Fortress, and if you go around the edge of the swamp, you don't trigger Hazel to spawn, and then you can go pick up the twin blades and crucially the what do you call it? The Farron coal, which you need for heavy and sharp infusions. So he can't give his weapons a sharp infusion without that upgrade coal, which I think is why he was going over there in the first place. Um, like I honestly wonder if this was just like a YOLO attempt and he didn't even like route it before this because like that's the kind of thing that you would plan for. Um, so I'm actually very curious how this run came about.
Too, because it looks so interesting. Now I'm curious, is he going to fight Watchers or just going to bone out?
Well, you can't bone out with the invader. His homeward bone is grayed out. He's not able to do it. You can't dark sign. You can't homeward bone. He's stuck here right now.
Yeah, but if he entered the boss fight,
entered the boss fight and then bone out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But because you're telling me he used to do a speedrun, so he has the experience for doing low damage Watchers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he should have that. Well, he did. I know he did no hit speed runs. I don't know if he's done regular speed runs, which it's a little bit different. But Dominico's done. I'm pretty sure he's done quite a few runs in this game, so I don't think he'll have much trouble one way or another.
Okay, he's going to fight them. Try away.
Interesting. Going with the bandits. It's good damage though, actually.
Yeah.
For what it is.
You're not bad for sure. Really interesting damage. Or maybe he's going to bone out.
Oh no, he's going. So there's a trick in this arena for anybody who hasn't seen this.
Okay.
There's if you keep the main watcher in this back portion of the arena, the other two will not spawn.
No way.
Yeah, and what he did there, so attack and then double parry with the grass crest shield, it baits him into this AI loop where he rolls after every attack. Yeah,
that's so cool.
It's rather precise to do this, and this was only found a couple years ago. It was actually really funny how it played out because a runner did this unintentionally. She got back into this back portion of the arena by accident right away, and as long as you so normally the way it works, the second watcher will spawn after 20 seconds or after you've brought the boss health bar down 20%. And same with the red watcher, another 20 seconds or another 20% of the health bar, and red will spawn. But if, once that 20-second mark is up, like if you enter the arena, go to the back of the boss of the arena and keep the main watcher back there, for whatever reason, the other two will never spawn as long as you stay in that back portion of the arena. So if you can get comfortable fighting him one-on-one in the back of the arena, it's a one-on-one fight the entire time. And what we were showing, you have to use the grass crest shield. It doesn't work with small shields, but you do that double parry strat and it will bait him into that AI loop. And it's really, really controllable. It's very nice. I'll bet he did that on his no-hit speed run, actually, because that is a good strat. It's relatively fast and there's not too much risk. It's really cool. But yeah, the whole strat was found by accident. A runner found that accidentally. She was in the back of the arena and she said, "Why aren't they spawning?" And Miko was the one who took notice of that and made a clip of it and shared it around with people. And other people were testing it and found out, yeah, it's actually consistent. And Josh Yojo was the one who added in the double parry strat with the grass crest shield to make it very controllable. So, and that all happened within 24 hours of someone accidentally finding this. All of these things came together within a day and we had a really good solid strat. Oh, and it doesn't work on certain patches for whatever reason.
Oh, of course it doesn't.
So speedrunners on 108, we're on 115 or 115.2 or whatever, but on 108, which is the common patch for speedruns, it doesn't work for whatever reason. But yeah, there he's despawned the invader, so he should be good now. That was really strange. Oh yeah, he's actually explaining it right now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
There's where he's walking is sort of the threshold. If you stay in that back portion of the arena, the other two will not spawn, and it's very, very cool.
I'm guessing that this should be probably because maybe the back part of the arena is not considered the boss fight part,
Sort of. I think what happened, this is purely speculation, is that really early on, I remember that there was a glitch in Dark Souls 3. I remember seeing a video of it or something where if you enter the Abyss Watchers arena and you wanted to summon someone, sometimes what would happen? Okay, now he's going back over the correct way to get
The twin blades.
Maybe the twin blades.
Oh
and
no, the
definitely
twin blades and the coal. Yeah, the Pharaoh coal.
and the Farron Cole. This is what you would normally do: go from halfway fortress and go around the edge of the arena and go over here to get whatever you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And that way you don't trigger Hazel. I already forgot what I was talking about.
Oh, you were talking about glitch on Watchers?
Oh yeah. So if you wanted to summon somebody like a human player, so he did get twin blades, right? I think he did.
Let me see. I didn't see actually. I think so. He did.
I think he did. I didn't even pay attention because I was talking.
Yeah, I think he did.
Oh no,
he
didn't.
Did.
Or yeah. Here
Yeah,
they are. Right. The armor set is up top and the twin blades are below. Okay. So from here on out, this is also sometimes what happens with region lock runs. Once he's all set up, he's gonna go to Wolnir. He's gonna go to Deacons, and then it'll probably be a mostly standard, any percent run. It is kind of interesting that instead of like I would kind of expect after Ponif that you go up to Aldrich and then go down to Yorm.
True.
But here later on he's got Ponif. I guess because you're already in Irithyll, so yeah, it makes sense to kill Ponif. Oh, and then let me think, because Distant Manor, the Distant Manor bonfire is not part of Irithyll Dungeon. It's kind of surprising that he's going to Yorm and then Aldrich. I'm wondering why that is, but maybe there's something I'm not thinking of there.
Because it will make sense. Like, Irithyll is after Deacons, right? So it will make and the Yorm bonfire is actually inside the Deacons region.
The Yorm bonfire?
Yeah, I mean the first bonfire, the one before Hoist Call. Wait, it's called Irithyll Dungeon actually? Now that I think about it.
Irithyll Dungeon.
Yeah, it's called like that. Because
interesting.
I know that the bonfire that you pick before Pontiff, the one that is like Distant Manor, that one is
Distant Manor.
Yeah, Distant Manor is inside Deacon's area, like Deacon region.
Really?
Yeah, it's on the same.
Hold on, I'm gonna look. I'm not doubting you, but I just want to see it for myself. I'm actually gonna open a DS3 for the first time in a while.
Because I remember it's on the same as Pontiff. I remember because you just scroll up. I know this because I know this isn't on the same.
Strange.
It's on the same bonfire as in Aldrich, because I do Aldrich after Jorm, and I just teleport directly from there. I just scroll up and go directly from there. But I mean, it will make more sense unless the Irithyll Dungeon bonfire is another region, which I don't know.
I thought the Irithyll Dungeon bonfire was a different region, but that's the one thing about this run that I'm not sure I understand. The rest of it, this makes sense. Seeing how the early game is set up. Oh my gosh, that's so loud.
Because
I haven't opened up Dark Souls 3 in ages, and it's so loud.
It will make sense because you cannot fight. You can go fight Jorm because you haven't killed all the enemy from the previous region, right? That will be Pontiff, Deacons, Aldrich, and who else? I think those are each boss from that area. So it will make no, but why he killed Aldrich after Jorm then?
Well, yeah, you gotta wonder. All right, I'm taking a look here. Deacons, High Lord, Demon King, Distant Manor. Oh, because well, no, that actually doesn't make any sense. Wait, what? Yeah, it seems really odd. In fact, I'm actually gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go check something real quick because I'm really curious why this is.
Yeah, but the path will be after Wolnir, you can't go to Iretil because Iretil is like 2 regions after that. So after Wolnir, you will need to go for Deacons, right? And after Deacons, you kill Pontiff. And no. Or yes? Yes. After Deacons, you kill Pontiff and Aldrich. No, it's just confusing actually.
I'm confused.
I'm
I'm very curious why
confused.
this is. Um,
I'm
I mean, we might be able to skip ahead and see what's going on. Like,
Yeah,
I
I'm
expect,
actually.
going to Wolnir, he's gonna tear through him
Yeah.
with twin blades.
Let's see.
And I think with Deacons is going to be pretty similar. I don't know if he's going to get skulls because he's got hidden body.
Okay, he's the weird thing. Okay, he should not be getting into, like, it should be legal, right? Because Iretil is another region.
That's what I'm wondering. So I'm running around trying to get to bonfires to check stuff because I'm very curious what's going on.
Because at least in my opinion, I know that Iretil is, because it's the only bonfire you take, so it's another area.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Let me think here. I'm almost to this Pond of Bonfire. Like, I'm just curious. I'm just running around trying to get access to some stuff to see what's what. Yeah, he didn't cross into Irithyll there, so he got Pontified Eye by killing the beast, which makes sense.
but the text of new area prompts.
Yeah.
So this should
that is true.
Okay, here, look. This is Iretil. Iretil, see, it's alone.
Oh, interesting.
This is Iretil, it's alone. Oh, maybe, but wait. Is Deacon's area shows after or before Iretil?
So in the menu.
In the menu,
I'm in the fast travel menu. Cleansing Chapel and Deacons of the Deep is more to the left. So it's before. See, it's weird. Cleansing Chapel and Deacons happens before
Iretil, right?
And then after Wolnir is all of Irithyll. So yeah, I'm wondering, this is what I mean. Like he probably has some, there probably is some logic for why he's going through this way. I just don't understand what it is yet. Also,
yeah, exactly.
I am going to take one moment to hit the bathroom real quick and I'll be right back.
Sure. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. I'm still just, we are pretty much confused about this because the regions, maybe we could check actually. I would like to know, because the regions on, I don't know how exactly the regions work on Dark Souls 3. I would like to check. Because they must be on a way to explain this. So basically the first area is the Cemetery of Ash. That's what I'm looking. Then is Firelink Shrine. You have High Wall of Lothric, Undead Settlement, Road of Sacrifice, Cathedral of Deep, actually, Faron Keep, Catacomb of Cartus. It's actually really weird. It's really, really weird. It's really, really weird. Let's see. They probably have a better way to see this, but it's really curious, to be honest. It's really curious.
All right. Yeah. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not criticizing it because I just don't understand it.
No, because it's that. It's just that. I mean, we're getting because I'm guessing he follows the. Okay, I found it here. The bonfires. Like you start on the Cemetery of Ash, right? You have Firelink Shrine, Cemetery of Ash, Gundyr, the boss area, and also you have Untended Graves and Champion Gundyr, that which obviously you cannot access yet, as far as I know.
Right.
Then you have High Wall of Lothric. This will be other area. That will be. But on this, since you kill Gundyr, you can already enter High Wall of Lothric. But we have to remember, he's not doing old boss